Board of Adjustment meeting Monday, October 2nd, 2017. I hereby declare this meeting of the Howell Township Zoning Board to be open. Adequate notice having been given pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act in the following manner. First, on January 10th, 2017, a copy of said notice was mailed to the Star Ledger and the Tri-Town News. Second, on January 10th, 2017, a copy of said notice was hand-delivered to the clerk of the Township of Howell. Third, on January 10th, 2017, said notice was posted in the office of the Zoning Board and on the bulletin board in the Howell Township Municipal Building, 4567 Route 9, Howell Township, New Jersey. In accordance with the Fire Prevention Code and your safety, please be advised that this facility is designed with 2 emergency exits, which are on your right at the front and rear of the meeting room. Furthermore, smoking is not permitted in the municipal building. Please take note that this meeting is being videotaped for possible future broadcast on Howell Township TV 77.
Thank you, Eileen. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, you may. Mr. Armada, I have not heard from, I'm not sure, I thought he was supposed to be here. Mr. Cordelicchio?
Here.
Mr. Mertens?
Here.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Here.
Mr. Posh?
Here.
Mr. San Clemente?
Here.
Mr. Turk?
Here.
Mr. Bloom has been excused, and Chairman Nansen.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Before we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, I would please like to take a moment of silence for what happened in Vegas. Not only Vegas, but Puerto Rico, Florida, and Texas. Just keep them in our prayers and hope that they all get through this and become better Americans for it. Thank you. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Tropoli, mind swearing in the professionals, please?
Very good, Mr. Chair. Swear the testimony you give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I do. The record should reflect that Ms. Apke, Mr. Mallon, and Mr. Howard have all been sworn for the evening.
Thank you. Approval of minutes,
We have no minutes this evening,
vouchers,
no vouchers.
correspondence.
I do have some correspondence.
Okay.
I have a letter from Ronald Gazarowski. He is the attorney for Stavola Leasing LLC, which is an interpretation which is on tonight's agenda. He has asked that the hearing be carried to November 13th, 2017. He has advised all interested parties by a copy of this letter, and he grants an extension of time through December 30th, 2017 on this application.
Okay. Is anyone in the audience for case number BA 17-13, Stavola Leasing LLC? Seeing no hands, this case will be adjourned to November 13th, 2017 with no further notice. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recognize Mr. Kenneth Pape with respect to an application on this evening, FP Howell LLC.
Yes, sir.
If I may, sir?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Pape.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. Kenneth Pape. I am the attorney for FP Howell. And some weeks ago, we received notice that the application was deemed complete and we had authorization to publish a notice for this evening, and we did. At the end of last week and on Friday, special counsel to Howell Township issued a letter raising an issue of jurisdiction. That issue needs to be resolved. Without waiving any of FP Howell's rights, we have no issue at all with the board not taking jurisdiction this evening. And after those issues are addressed, I believe it'll be through Mr. Tropoli, Mr. Andrew Bayer, special counsel, and our office. We're hopeful that we'll be back in front of the board and we'll republish and renotice.
Okay.
So we make this we do this evening, apologizing to the board's professionals, and to any members of the public who have come. This was raised by Mr. Bayer on Friday, and this was our first opportunity to speak to you.
Okay. Mr. Tropoli?
Mr. Chairman, I concur with Mr. Pape's remarks. Clearly, the issue of jurisdiction needs to be explored before this can proceed before this body. So I think what Mr. Pape is proposing is very appropriate, and I think that the matter should be relisted for another time with notice once these issues are resolved in full.
Okay. Is anyone in the audience for case number BA 17-12 FP Howell LLC? Okay, did you understand what's going on for that?
Not exactly. I think we're going to be sending another notice for a meeting sometime in the future.
This is correct.
Mr. Mayor, could you tell me how many different people have been notified? Because it seems like we're the only people from the area.
Well,
And I've talked to a lot of people, and they didn't get a notice that I got a registered letter. But I thought with, when you go for a variance, which I got many years ago, I had to notify all the people within that area. And there's a lot of homes there that are affected by this.
well, sir, if it's within a 200-foot radius of the property,
Yes.
then they get noticed. If it's outside that radius, they would not receive that notice. However, the applicant receives from Eileen a letter from the tax assessor of the properties within that 200 feet. So if it's within that, they're getting that from the tax assessor, so.
All right, then I'll get a petition started by all the people in that whole area around me.
Sir?
Then I'll get a petition started and signed by all the people in the whole area.
I'll let Mr. Tropoli address that.
First of all, Mr. Chairman, we shouldn't have any additional commentary. Anyone is eligible to come to a meeting. The board does not accept petitions, but if you wish to bring everyone you wish to a meeting, that's fine. But, and then there will be a public portion, but as far as what the chairman said, when Mr. Pape renotices, it'll be based on the tax assessor list.
What he has. Okay.
Correct, sir.
I understand that.
No problem.
Okay.
100%.
Right.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
this case will be renoticed in a future date if the board has jurisdiction on the case.
Okay.
So, okay, sir?
Thank you very much.
Thank
sir.
you. Okay, Eileen, any further correspondence?
No further correspondence.
What about the next meeting?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I did hand out to all the board members. Our next meeting, we have no applications to discuss, so the meeting will be canceled. However, the board members are still going to meet for a training session. It'll be the same time here, 7:30 in the main meeting room, October 23rd.
Okay,
Okay? Thank you.
thank you. Okay, resolutions. Case number BA 17-05, Mark Parisi, resolution denying the appeal of zoning officer's decision. Eligible voters, Carlicchio, O'Donnell, Turk, and Nansen. Do I have a motion?
Excuse me, I'll make a motion to memorialize case number BA 17-05, Mark Parisi.
Motion by Mr. O'Donnell. Do I have a second? Seconded by Mr. Turk. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Cardelicchio?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mr. Turk?
Yes.
Chairman Nansen?
Yes.
Thank you. Resolution is memorialized.
Okay, case number BA 17-06, How for Open Land and Preservation of Environment, HOPE. Resolution denying the interpretation of ordinances. Eligible voters, Carlicchio, Mertens, O'Donnell, Posh, Nansen. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, for case number BA 17-06, How for Open Land and Preservation. Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. O'Donnell. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Merton. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, you may. Mr. Cardelicchio?
Yes.
Mr. Mertens?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mr. Posh?
Yes.
And Chairman Nansen?
Yes.
Resolution's memorialized.
Thank you. Case number BA 07-17, Americo Real Estate Company, formerly Reyes Self-Storage Facility. Resolution granting extension of time approval. Eligible voters, Armada, Mertens, O'Donnell, Posh, Nansen. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to grant extension of time and also to fix on page 2 the date. It says September 10th, 2017. It's supposed to be December 10th, 2007.
So noted, I will correct it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is that part of your motion?
Yes, it
Okay.
is.
Mr. Tropoli, we okay with that?
Absolutely, as long as it's adopted
Okay.
with the clerical error
That,
that
that's,
has been corrected. Cross
Okay.
it out.
motion by Mr. O'Donnell with the amendment for clerical error. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Merton. Can we have a roll call, please?
I'm sorry, who did the second on that?
Mr. Merton,
Thank you. Mr. Amata is not here. Mr. Mertens?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mr. Posh?
Yes.
And Chairman Nansen?
yes.
Resolution's memorialized.
Thank you.
That's all right, no big deal. I can fix it.
Okay.
Tomorrow, yes.
Yes, sir.
If you send somebody over to pick it up, I'll just call you when it's ready. Okay? Thank you. I'm sorry, hold on. Now we have a this gentleman's not here.
Ready?
Yes,
We good?
yes.
Mr. Sonneblick, could you please come to the mic, please?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we thought we were gonna have a full board tonight.
I see,
Mr.
I see Mr. Amata's not here. I was thinking to myself.
Okay, I'm gonna leave that up to you, if you need a moment to
This is a
What I
have
would-
conference with your,
Well, I've had conferences with them and during the course of the day when we thought there wouldn't even be 6 necessarily. And I know that you're recused from hearing this matter.
Yes, sir.
And I wasn't sure that Mr. San Clemente was going to be here. I understood that. So at this point, I think what we would do is, since we only have Mr. Armada, and of course Ian is not here. I know he's out of state. I found that out from your secretary. We'll go forward with the 6. Yes, 6. And since we need 5 votes, at the end of the night, I may ask for the matter to be carried until such time as one of the, whether it be the alternate or be Mr. Armada, could possibly, if it's necessary, read the transcript or listen to the tape, see the exhibits, and come back at another time for the actual vote and my 4-hour summation. And that's basically it.
Mr. Tropoli?
It would be the applicant's call if he
Okay.
wishes to proceed, and that would be fine.
Very well. I'm not even
obviously,
gonna
our
read
next-
it. I'm
our
gonna
next-
step down at
Right,
this
our
time.
next meeting, I'll point out, is in November,
November the 13th.
just so you know.
That's fine. We did that. We're not a time frame that's pushing. We'll give an extension to whatever you need if you need an extension. It's not an issue.
Okay, and with that, I do understand in looking over the service list that our chairman is within the 200-foot radius.
That's correct.
So I understand. So, Mr. Chairman, you'll be stepping down from the application?
This is correct, and Mr. San Clemente will be taking over the chair spot.
Very good. And with that, if we could just call the case, and then we'll let we'll let Chairman San Clemente call the case, and then introduce the applicant's attorney. Should reflect that the chairman has in fact stepped from the dais, and Chairman San Clemente will be handling the TAL application. Chairman San Clemente, you may proceed.
Okay. All right, this will be case number BA 17-10, Jason and Israel Tao. Use variance, application of Jason and Israel Tal as applicants and owners seeking use variance approval to use their existing property for a landscape design and maintenance company on premises known as Block 182, Lot 13, 46 Yellowbrook Road. The application of Justin and Israel Tal was originally scheduled to be heard on September 25th, 2017, and it was carried to October 2nd, 2017, with no further notice. Expiration date, November 25th, 2017.
Okay, Mr. Sonnenblick, you may proceed when you're
Thank you.
ready.
Thank you. This is an application for a use variance. It's, depending upon how the board feels about it, at the end of the day, I'm glad that that's up there. And Mark, you could certainly use, I don't think there's anybody in the audience from our application, so we didn't have anybody here last week, so I don't think anybody's here this week. Basically, we are going to go through the use, why we think we should be granted a variance, my client, and we have a site plan that if at the end of the day, the board believes that they would like us to make an application for site plan, that if it can't, assuming that you are going to approve it, obviously, we would then make an application for the site plan for review purposes, but we are going to refer to your engineer's report and your planner's report as to what we will do to respond to their comments that are there, and you can make a decision as to whether you want us to come back or not for a site plan. So I'll start off at this point in time, having our engineer speak first, be qualified, and then after he points out what the location of the site, the other commercial and other residential or farm uses in the area, he will basically sit down, and then our client will come up and explain his entire use, how it works, how it operates. He'll come back, then, our engineer, that based on that, this is what he's done, and this is what it looks like, and how it will remain, at which point we would then have our planner, at the end of the day, give her planning reasons for why she believes, because if she didn't say she believes that it's a good variance, she wouldn't be here, so that's not much humor, but that's a fact. Our professionals would have to be on our side, and to respond to any questions, or provide you with additional information if you so wanted. All right, thank you.
Thank you. And, Mr. Sonnenblick, why don't we ask all of your witnesses to come on? I'll swear them all in on us, as we'll name their names and what areas of practice that they do. So, and that would include your client as well.
He's here. That's our client.
Very well dressed young man, okay. Would each of you please raise your right hand? Swear that the testimony that you'll give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
Yes, and sir, starting with you, may we have your full name?
Yes, it's Mark with a C. Last name is Lieber, L-E-B-E-R.
And engineer?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Justin Tao. I'm the owner of the property with my father, Israel Tao, and I'm the owner of Creative Design and Maintenance LLC.
Very well, thank you.
Allison Coffin, I'm a professional planner.
Very well. All sworn, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Mr. Sonnenblick.
Thank you. Mr. Lieber, and I guess, do we have a microphone if he's going to?
Yeah, we can. Boarding house week.
There are mics on the table as well, but if you're referring to the board, you might want to use that.
Thank you.
Mr. Lieber, why don't you, perhaps you could stand over here for the most part, and then if you have to move around to point anything out, you will.
If you could just run through his
That's what I'm
qualifications,
going to do.
if you would, thank you.
Would you set forth your name, occupation, education for the board, please?
So I'm a licensed civil engineer. I graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree from Drexel University. And I began working in this field in 1996. I am a licensed professional engineer. I'm also a licensed planner, certified municipal engineer. I, about 10 years ago, was actually on the Howell Township Planning Board for some time. And then I've testified before numerous boards, both planning and zoning boards, as well as county boards throughout New Jersey, hundreds of times.
We accept your qualifications.
Thank you very much. I do have a couple of exhibits, and I would like to mark them all right now. So I'm going to start with the board on my right here.
Right, Mr. Chair, the next marking on the towel case, I believe, would be A7. So if we could just ask our secretary to assist, and if you would put a description on that for A7, please?
Okay, so A7 is a color 24 by 36 aerial photograph of the surrounding properties. And I also have a reduced handout that I could pass around.
Yes, that would be great.
Very good.
So,
That is going to be incorporated with additional photographs, correct?
I want to mark the photos separately,
Okay.
actually. So this one being passed around right now is a reduced copy of what's on this board.
Okay, good.
Easier, that's
On the reverse side,
Okay.
I don't know if we have to mark this, it's actually sheet 3 of the drawings that are on file. Nothing different about it, so
Well,
if you...
I would mark it,
Yeah,
if
okay.
you're going to refer to it. So we'll mark that as A8.
Which is
Just
sheet 3 of the application?
Yes,
As it
Sheet
shows
3
the
of
site,
application mounted,
okay.
I'm sorry, plan rather, thanks.
And then my last one is, it's a group of photographs. It's 5 pages, and it includes photographs of the property that we're here to discuss tonight. So I'll presume it's,
You took the photographs?
yes.
Place the description on the record again. A9 is?
It's a group of photographs.
Indicate what they show, and perhaps we can do A, B, C, D, E, and F?
And how many, please?
Okay, so the first one is another aerial photo. This is a more recent aerial. And then the following 8 photos are photos that I took of the property.
So, in other words, there is a recent aerial that would be photo number 1, and then there are 7 photographs behind that, or 8? What's that?
There's 8 behind it.
8 behind it, and they are just general,
Yeah, they're,
showing the house and the yard and what exists today?
yes.
Would you like them individually referred to?
If he intends to refer to them individually, probably for the clarity of the record, I would think probably be better.
I would agree.
A9A, A9B. and so
I would agree, because our applicant and planner may testify to them too, so at least they can refer to the specific photograph. So could you just say what those photographs are? We'll call it B. We'll start with B.
Sure. So we got A as the aerial. B is the front of the property.
Front of the property, sir?
That's correct.
Okay.
We'll call C the rear of the house. Call D the entrance drive.
What was that again, D?
D would be the entrance drive. E would be vehicle parking. We can call F the center of the yard. G would be northerly yard. H would be the southerly yard. And the last one is I, which is a direct photo straight down over the yard.
Is that an aerial photo or not?
It is, but it's an aerial that I took.
Okay. Direct photo, aerial of the yard itself.
Correct. Can I bring them around?
And you have a copy for
C3
everybody?
Site plan, mounted version, Your Honor.
All right, we can hand it to Eileen. Eileen, would you hand them out, or?
What's that, the photos?
Yes, we have a photo for everybody on the board,
Thank you.
and others as well.
Thank you, I'll let Tom.
well. You have to try to just say what is in the surrounding area. You know, so, I'm looking for harms, whatever, what's there, so to see it. Hey, Mr. Lieber, is everybody okay with what they have? If you would, utilizing who's moving that?
I am. Magic.
Oh, you magic fingers?
See?
Okay.
Look.
All right. If we go to the top, the first one that we have, the first page, that's it, thank you. Utilizing the use variance plan, would you just indicate from what it shows, what are the general uses in the area, and the location of our site, which is, I guess, the picture to the left, is that correct?
Sure. Okay, so just some broad background information. The block is 182 on this property. It's lot 13. It's number 46 Yellowbrook Road, and it has 250 feet of frontage along the street, and it's approximately 2,000 feet deep. Size of the lot is, it's almost 10.3 acres, and the zone is ARE 6. I'm going to refer to what we marked previously as A7, which was the aerial map which shows the lot lines. And in the smaller size that was handed out, you'll notice a blue star, which is placed on the property that we're discussing. On this map, north is straight up, so we'll start east. Again, the property is about 2,000 feet deep. It's heavily wooded, and to the east, you'll see it's an adult community known as Equestra. And if you were to extend beyond the top of this page, you would find Route 33 crossing from left to right. Along Yellowbrook Road, to the south, you have properties that are owned and occupied by George Harms Construction. It's heavy construction. You'll notice, you can see his yard in the aerial. Directly across Yellowbrook Road to the
By
west.
the way, just while you're talking about the harms, there are houses on that property as well?
There is a house which is owned by Harms, and I believe he rents it out or has it occupied by people that are affiliated with his organization.
One house or two?
It's
You
on
know.
lot number 10, which is actually directly south of this property. Across the street from the site, there's lot 56, which currently has stables, and there's horse stables on this property. And I would consider that, more or less an agricultural livestock use. To the north of that property is lot 55. Seems there's some type of a tree removal company or something related to tree removal on that property. And then on this side of Yellowbrook Road to the north, there's a kennel operation, which is on lot number 14. And then beyond that is another agricultural use on lot 15.
We will have Mr. Lieber speak to the reports from your planner and from your engineer, and he'll come back, but I thought at this point, we would have our applicant and the owner of Creative Design tell you how this operation works, and he will be able then to utilize the site plan. But why don't you show, when you talk about the site plan, just point it out so the board sees how it's set up in terms of access and where the vehicles would park and the like.
Sure. Okay, so on Yellowbrook Road, again, the property has 250 feet of frontage. To the north end, there's an existing driveway, and that driveway serves the residents. It's a gravel driveway. On the south side, there's an additional driveway, which is also gravel, and that leads through a gate, which is a wooden stockade fence. Through that gate, you access the yard area. The yard area is approximately 250 feet by 240 feet across. And what we had labeled on the plan, which is sheet 3, is how the yard is really utilized. So as you enter the yard, on your right, the first thing you'll notice is there's a parking area for employees.
Mr. Lieber, just so everybody knows, if anybody looks, this is the plan that's showing on the board.
That's the same plan.
Same plan.
Beyond the employee parking, there's an area of some trees, and then beyond the trees, which I could show you in the photographs that we had taken, you'll notice where the trucks and trailers are parked for landscape crews. There are a few storage bins because there is equipment that's utilized in the operation that can't get wet, and those types of things are stored in these bins. Across the yard, there's two areas. One is a hardscape storage, which the owner will describe. They do patio installation. If there's a couple of pavers left over, they would bring them back to the yard and hold on to them. And similarly, there's a live plant area. Again, plants come to the job site, and then if there's something left over and needs to be changed out, they could bring it back to the yard, and they have a place where they could temporarily store it. On this plan, it shows where the trash enclosure is presently located. And then there's a proposed item, which is a proposed shed. That's not presently there right now. That's something that they are requesting to install. This building has a new septic system, which was completed within the last year, and the house has been renovated. Not sure if you're familiar with the area, but it looks dramatically much better than it used to. It's been redone and modernized. Beyond this portion of the yard is the tree line, and then the remainder of the property all the way back to Equestria is wooded. It's heavily wooded.
And there are no plans to disturb those woods, is that correct?
That's right, yes.
And what's going to be, you're going to have the tree lines, is there going to be any fencing?
There is, speak to the fencing that we have that is there now.
I'm
that
going
we
to,
put in.
do you want me to go through those photos real quick?
Sure, that would
Okay,
be good.
I want to go through the photos because there is a fence there.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
question.
go ahead.
Was the septic work done with permits and inspections?
Yes.
A9 of the group of photographs, right?
Okay, so I'm going to go to A9. The first photo is letter B. So this photo is taken basically at Yellowbrook Road, and what you see on the top is the existing house. You'll notice on both the left and the right of the house is a 6-foot-high stockade fence, and the driveway that's in the foreground of the photo is the northerly driveway which serves the residents. There's a 2-car garage, and it's a gravel driveway. In the distance in that photo, you'll be able to see the yard area, which is delineated again by the same fence. So if you look toward the top of the photo, you'll see that perimeter fence that you were just asking about that cuts off the yard from the remaining woods. The next photo, letter C.
Before you get to that,
Yes.
the house, is that a single-family home?
Yeah, that house is lived in by our client. It's his residence,
It's his residence?
and he's living there by himself.
Okay.
And it's also used as the office, which he'll explain.
Okay, so moving to the next photo on the bottom, this is also taken along Yellowbrook Road, except what you're looking at is the other driveway on the south end. This is the driveway that goes to the yard area, and you'll notice there's a stockade fence with a gate, and that's the gate that we were referring to that you would need to pass through to get to the yard. Letter D, which is the top of page 2. This is a photo looking down at the entrance to the yard. So you'll notice these 3 or 4 cars parked. That's the employee parking area that I was referring to before. And on the extreme right of the photo is the house. The next photo after that, my camera's in the same position, but instead of looking toward Yellowbrook Road, I'm looking toward the rear. So you'll see the area where the vehicles are parked that are used for the business. In the center of the photo, you'll see a trash enclosure, and then immediately to the left of the trash enclosure is the area that I was discussing for storage of live plant material.
And you're going to have 16 trucks in this area?
No, well, we'll have the testimony of that, not 16.
Because according to the drawing, there's 16.
Well, I think you maybe look at the trailer portion as a separate part of the truck. It's not the truck.
Oh.
I think that's what you're looking at.
Correct.
And then, okay, so you're going to have the existing trash enclosure, and then to the left will be the proposed shed?
Exactly.
Okay. And do you have a picture of those storage, the hardscape storage, live plant storage?
Actually, I do. So let's go to the next page.
Okay.
The top of the photo here, what I did is I brought the camera down vertically so you could see more or less the center of the yard. So
That's number F, right? And that's F, if you're gonna put that.
that's letter F. Yes.
Letter F.
So again, in the center of the photo, you'll see the trash enclosure, and then immediately to the left is the live plant material storage. But beyond that, you'll see some hardscape material. That's where like excess paver blocks and whatnot are stored.
So it's just an area, there's not going to be any enclosed storage, like a
No.
bin or anything like that?
No, I mean, right now, there is just a pallet with some blocks that are left over from a job or two, and the owner is going to discuss how that ends up coming into the yard and whatnot.
Okay.
So the photo below that is just, it's really the same position, but I'm looking more to the left, so you can see the extent of the yard, which is delineated by the fence. On the last page, on the top, you'll see my camera's behind the house, and on the extreme right is the gate entering the yard, and on the extreme left is where the vehicles would be parking. And in the center is the area of trees that are shown on my plan as trees to remain. And finally, on the bottom, this is a photo looking straight down. You'll see at the top of the photo, there's 3 beige storage containers. And you'll notice in this picture, there's 3 trucks with trailers shown. You can see the trash area, you can see the live plants on the right, and below that is the hardscape storage.
So looking at the site plan itself, which you'll get into in more detail when you testify to the specific aspects, as we look at the big board anyway, we're showing the parking with the trailers. Is that what's on top of the exhibit? In other words, of your second page of your application, which is actually now our A8 as well? That's on the board. That's A8.
Correct. If you look at where the vehicles are on the right side, so it's a 2-part vehicle. You have a cab and a trailer. So this picture that's before you shows 7 total.
And then above that,
Are 2 storage bins, more or less. They're like trailers. They're
And those-
stationary, they don't move.
and they will be spoken to by our client. And then below that, you have
4
Go ahead.
4 stationary storage bins.
Are you saying, bins, you mean like a storage shipping box?
Correct. There's actually, if you look back, there's a better photo on the second page. At the bottom, you'll see one in the corner there.
When you say the second page, you're talking about the
It's letter E.
letter E, okay, which shows the vehicle parking, okay.
In the far corner, you'll see one.
So I'm
They're
only
shipping
seeing,
containers, 20-foot shipping containers?
Yes.
Chairman, I'd like to, before we go on, tell you that I did a site review inspection. So I reviewed a lot of this, and whenever you want me to chime in, you let me know.
okay.
Okay?
Go ahead, continue.
Right. Then we're showing employee parking below that. We have a break from the 4 storage bins. What's below the 4 storage bins?
That would be the employee parking area, which is located right next to the gate into the yard.
And we're showing how many parking spaces? There.
We show 6.
Okay. And outside of that, is the septic is behind the house, is that correct?
It is.
Is there anything else on the plan that you think is noteworthy at this point in time? We can go back to it, and our client can speak to it as well. But everything that is here is what is intended to be here, and this will be the operation of this facility based upon what you were told by your client when you developed this plan.
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell, let's have your input.
I went to the property Saturday, and I met the owner, one of them, and he was kind enough to take me inside and show me around. What I saw was the place was very well maintained. I thought the house was actually brand new, and it wasn't. It was just remodeled, and it looks new. Everything here is just the way he said it is. He does have trailers that he puts equipment in. He takes care of the trash himself, so he has his own trash removal. He has cameras on the house. I suggested to him that maybe he would put lights where he keeps his equipment and where he parks his vehicles, the business vehicles. All the land was cleared nice, everything was neat and clean. There was a stockade fence all the way around the place. He said there'd be no public coming, no retail, just the landscaping business that goes in and out. I had suggested to him that he may want to put concrete where he parks his trucks because of the leakage on he has like crushed rock there. So for parking purposes, we like to see it on concrete so that, it catches all the leaking and everything. Honestly, I couldn't find any problems with this particular case, and I felt, very good about it when I left, that it was nice and neat and clean, and it wouldn't be a problem for the area, because there's a lot of business in that particular area. And on Copper Road, down at the end, all through the whole road, and it isn't out of the ordinary for something like this to be there, and it's very light, because that particular area was headed for SED zoning, which never materialized, which would be light industry, which would probably be materializing soon. So if you have any questions for me, I can answer them for you.
But as far as what the engineer said, you saw...
Exactly what he said.
Exactly what he said.
And,
Okay.
he was very forthcoming and showed me and answered whatever I wanted.
Okay.
And we do have an environmental commission report, which is part of your package, dated July 12th, 2017. And the reason I bring it up is maybe the first time, maybe not. They liked it. And it's not often that I get an environmental report that says, basically, it's a one sentence. The Environmental Commission understands that this involves the zoning board variance issues, not environmental concerns. The definitions of permitted uses within the ARE 6 should be amended to allow the use in cases such as this. So they were giving you their opinion. And of course, we have the fire report. It's the only other report we have, who spoke about having a Knox lock on the gate in case somebody has to, and that's not, again, we're going to respond to all of the engineer's reports, because we're going to conform, and we are not going to have any fuel tanks on the property. Everything is serviced, as you'll find out, everything is serviced off-site.
Okay.
Nothing's delivered to the site.
Dan?
No, that was my question.
I had one.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you said there's going to be a proposed shed. Is that, so it's not going to disturb any of these trees? Because looking at the plan, the trees are pretty staggered, so it looks like you'll be able to fit that shed in, but is that going to be the case?
Yeah, we have room to move it so that we don't need to,
Okay.
yeah. We can fit it
In
without
other words,
disturbing
we
trees.
would represent that no trees will have to taken down in order to put the shed in.
Okay.
How high will that shed be?
What you have we have it on the,
Be under 12 feet.
12 feet?
and our client will testify as to exactly what will be in that shed as well.
No. Jack, you have anything? Okay,
And we'll respond to that when he comes back. We have his report.
okay.
I'll deal with engineering questions first, and then we'll wait for the planner.
Yeah,
Well, we're gonna bring the engineer back in again after our expert, after our client speaks, all right? Then you'll have a chance to,
Okay.
all right? I want them to hear the operation, so everybody gets the whole feeling as to what this is
All
about.
right, you want me to wait then, Mr. Chairman?
you want to wait till after?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're gonna bring him right back. We're gonna bring him right back. All
Okay,
right, Justin, would you come up, please?
okay.
Unless anybody,
Before that, anybody else?
anybody from the public have any questions, whatever the case may be.
Do you want to open her witness, or do you want to wait?
think we'll wait until the end. Anybody else? Questions for the engineer?
He'll be back.
Yeah.
You think
Okay.
it's something else, you got another shot at him.
Good evening. I'm Justin Tal, the owner of Creative Design and Maintenance LLC, and the owner of the property along with my father, Israel Tal. My LLC company was established in 2008 when I devoted my personal time through Freehold Regional High School, local district, and college to build the business that I own today.
Where did you go to school? Sir?
I went to high school in the Freehold Township High School. It is an agricultural school. They do have a specialized program there. So I did attend Freehold Township High School. And I hold a Bachelor of Science in Landscape Architecture from Rutgers University, which has greatly added to my operation and servicing my customers
So
since my graduation.
So you began operating the landscape business approximately when?
In 2008 in the town of Manalapan, which is a neighboring town where I had grown up.
And you then were looking for more space, as I understand it. So tell us, you were looking to do what your operation is today. If you could, explain how your operation works, where your materials come from, where the employees come from, when they get there, the hours of operation. Go through that
Okay,
generally.
not a problem.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Tal, you have a landscape architect license, or you just have a business that does landscaping?
I have a licensed landscape architect who works for me part-time. I have a degree in landscape architecture, but I'm not a licensed landscape architect.
You also are with pesticide and
I am registered with the DEP with a pesticide license for my company. I am a pesticide applicator. I have certified pesticide operators. We do everything per New Jersey DEP. We do continuing credits as far as maintaining our licenses. My company is a licensed interlocking concrete paver installer by the ICPI. I am a certified retaining wall installer by the National Concrete Mason Association. We are a authorized installer of Teco Block product. These are all relevant products and installations in both the towns for private homes as well as the public sector as far as our pavement and a move towards impervious issues in the town and focusing on developing the new ways of installing patios and roadways and driveways and so on. So my company is a design and
Excuse me,
installation.
so just one question. So then, the landscape architect does all the planning, and then you do
What
all the
I do
installing?
basically is I run the business. I do meet with clients face-to-face at their residences. We basically meet to see what sort of installation is looking to be done, whether it's a front landscaping, a driveway, a patio, a backyard, a pool, fence, privacy fence, and so on. We provide a quote for the project. We provide 3D renderings and CAD renderings, which are put together by my landscape architect. I then present it to the client, say a week to 2 weeks after meeting the client initially at their home. And then from there, we move on with the permit process, which many of our installations do take place in Howell Township, which is why I'm residing here in Howell Township. We've done a few hundred homes in the Equestria community, which is my neighboring community. We are now moving into the Four Seasons Monmouth Woods on West Farms Road, which is a new adult community. And we're super excited about all the new and upcoming communities that are in the area that provide us with the ability to do many of our installations, as well as some of the older residences, which we do renovations for, and continued property maintenance in the area.
My only question, you're not a landscape architect that can sign plans, but you have the education and you have the business, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
with regard to, first of all, is it a 12-month operation, or is it closed during the course of the winter? What is the hour, and then I'll ask you about the hours of operation
Okay.
and how it operates.
So it's a seasonal business. I basically had outgrown my rental location in Manalapan, which I had been at since 2008. We purchased this property approximately a year ago, and I do use it as my business location and personal residence. I focused on a few key points when I did seek 46 Yellowbrook Road. I did want a larger site. I was at about 1/4 of an acre, which was fully maximized from start to finish. Agricultural zoning, because again, I did go to school in agriculture. I went to Cook Campus at Rutgers, which was agriculture. I did want my private lot and location versus renting. We were serving the equestrian community the past few years. I saw this sign on Yellowbrook Road for sale, and we did move forward with that. I saw the neighbors, which are farmers, cement plant, construction companies, all neighboring that property, as well as neighboring the equestrian community where we were working on. And the affordability of the property, since I'm not retail, I do not have clients coming to the property, I did not need a location which could be found on Route 9 or Route 33. So that just gives you some background of why I did place myself at 46 Yellowbrook Road over other options. My landscaping yard basically consists of, and you had gone through this with the engineer, but I'll tell you from more of a standpoint of someone like myself who is in and out constantly. We enter the yard from the main road. We do have hedging material, plant materials along the fenced-in yard, the front of the house. Mr. O'Donnell was at the property. We keep it pristine. We have flower plantings throughout the seasons. I think it is a very well-kept property as far as curb appeal. And it doesn't look like a construction company, whereas my neighbors do look like construction companies. It looks like a beautiful property. So coming in from the right side of the property, we go through the gates, which do remain closed throughout the day. They're only open when people are entering and exiting. There's employee parking, approximately 6 vehicles. My employees do generally live in a similar vicinity, and they do carpool to work. So at a peak time of the season, which I might call May, June, into July, depending on the weather. It was a cold spring this year. We didn't get started till much later. We do have up to 20 seasonal employees. That does include 2 office employees, one being a college associate, a friend of mine from college, who does also hold a degree in Rutgers in public planning, and my brother, who has just graduated in accounting, who does also work at the office, which is my residence as well. So we have...
Before you get there, so you have 2 in the office, one including your brother and yourself, is that?
No, my brother and my office administrator, office manager.
So 2 in the office. And then you have another 18, those are the workers that go...
At a peak period, they're not...
The question I would ask is, they're not there at all times. Explain how many may be on the job at any given time, and there are less, obviously, in the early spring and less in the...
Yes,
towards the
so
fall. But explain how that works.
in the peak time, which would be the early spring, there may be up to 20 seasonal employees. We do work staggered days. We work Monday through Friday for the hours of approximately 7:30 leaving the yard, arriving back at the yard by sundown, which is probably somewhere between 4 to 6 p.m. since different jobs end at different times of the day based on completion by the crew.
Explain that your jobs are not daily jobs. Generally speaking, how long is a particular job?
A job could last anywhere from 4 days to a week and a half, depending on, let's say it's a simple 200 square foot patio, we may be in and out of the job site in 2 days, versus a 1,000 square foot driveway, which may take 7 to 10 days. So our jobs do vary in the length of the time. The number of employees going to each job site is approximately 3 to 4 people per crew. We do not operate all the crews all the time, all year. It is seasonal, so we do have the truck parking area, which does show planned for 7 trucks, dump trucks. They're small dump trucks. They're not tandem dump trucks, which are on the roadways nearby at construction companies. Mine are more towards the size of a larger pickup truck. They're Isuzu trucks, which you do have pictures of. We do have trailers that are attached to those trucks. Those trailers go out to the job. Sometimes they stay out at the job for a week. So sometimes you're looking at an empty yard with a few trucks for a week, 2 weeks at a time. And sometimes you do have trailers there with the trucks, depending on the job location.
So the trucks, you said you start at 7:30?
Yes, they're out of the yard by 7:30.
Out of the yard by, so when do they start up those trucks? When does,
Not before 7 o'clock a.m.
7 o'clock they start?
Yes.
So they're gonna start turning on the trucks and getting them going?
Yes, if they're,
Putting in,
generally it's employees arriving, parking their vehicles on the right side in the employee parking area. They proceed to their truck. There is a foreman on each crew. The foreman either already has his plans because we're on a, let's say, a one-week job. We don't need to be instructed every morning what we're doing at the one-week job. They have their plans. They leave. I would say by 7:30, the crews that have arrived for the work for the day have left. There is not much noise in the morning aside from the truck leaving, which is minimal because we do not have large diesel trucks. We have gas vehicles for the most part.
Okay, now the trailer,
Yes.
how does that get?
The trailer is connected by a bull hitch to the truck.
Okay,
We
and
do
then-
have DOT licensing, so we do maintain proper connections and vehicle capacities and hauling weights per New Jersey law.
However,
Okay, so
you do-
then, excuse me, Jerry. So then the trailer, when is that loaded?
The trailer is loaded with tools. We do not load materials at this property for the most part. What is being stored in the storage trailers or at the hardscape storage, at the live plant storage, is mainly small items such as weed barrier, gutter piping, electrical conduit piping, plant materials, which are maybe if we were doing a job that just needs a handful of plants. Pavers are just leftover pavers from job sites. All of our delivery of material goes to the job sites.
From where?
So we operate with V&S Landscaping, which I believe is considered Howell or Freehold on Route 33 Business. Reed and Perrine Landscaping Materials, which is in Manalapan. They're a paver, landscape, and fertilizer supplier. Pantano Nursery, which is on 522 in Manalapan, is a Teco Block distributor for the pavers, as well as plant materials and products such as rocks, gravel, and so on.
So they get delivered directly to
So
the
paver
client?
material, yes, that is correct. Paver materials, so an average job will have 5 to 20 pallets of pavers delivered to the job site. Plant materials will consist of a tractor trailer of plant materials delivered to the job site. I don't have the capability to load my trucks with 20 pallets because I do not have tandem dump trucks or 40-foot trailers as do these suppliers. So all of that sort of large bulk material is either delivered to the job site or brought to the job site on our dump trucks. The dump trucks come back empty at the end of the day. They may come back with a pallet with a few rows. A row is a 4x4 area, which is the size of a pallet, of pavers that may have been in excess from that job site that week, that day, and that will be reused at a later time.
Good.
Are they box trailers on the back? of
Yes,
the
they are
trucks?
enclosed trailers. I believe there may be pictures of them in the,
You're not gonna keep topsoil or anything like that in the yard, bluestone,
generally not.
fill dirt, nothing like that?
Generally not. I mean, we may have an area of some topsoil being, we do maintain our live plant area, and that may entail needing some topsoil, but we're not setting up bins in that sense.
Okay, excuse me.
Go ahead, Rich, go ahead.
You do regular landscape maintenance, so you do have mowers and things?
Minimal. We
Okay.
basically, our logic is we are installing in a landscape construction sort of manner. However, we're not going to just dump our client once we're done doing the installation. They want to have proper continued maintenance for our installation to know that it's going to actually last. So properly taking care of the plants, proper pruning, and so on.
Okay, so you get your bulk material at some of the landscape yards, so as far as brush,
We
grass-
dump at local municipalities.
Okay.
I am a registered, self-generating, licensed garbage hauler, so we do dump at the Tinton Falls
Okay.
municipality, Field Cartage Incorporated municipality, and a few other locations. So that's where we get rid of soil, we recycle soil, we recycle brush, and then maybe, who knows, a year later, we're using that as mulch, but
Yeah.
we're recycling it at the proper locations.
So there's not gonna be clippings of any kind here?
No.
Tree limbs, grass, anything?
No. And if you were to call up my company and say, we want to have our lawn mowed, we want to have, that sort of maintenance, we will kindly refer you to a local company because that is not the focus of our company.
Okay. Let's just finish with the operations then.
Okay.
So people are gonna arrive at 7, get into their trucks, out by 7:30, and then you're gonna be back by...
Between 4 to 6 p.m. It's a staggered return time. There is no specific set return time other than we try to be in before 6 PM just to be kind to the neighbors and so on.
Okay.
And for the safety of being back by sundown.
And what about, like, June, July, August? Sundown is 8:30?
Well, it's 90
o'clock?
degrees in those months, so sundown is usually the time you want to be back.
Okay.
So generally, we will arrive at 7 o'clock the earliest. We're out by 7:30. The gates are closed. The traffic during the day may be 1 or 2 trucks returning for some materials that they need that we store, which again, I said are very general items, such that are landscape material items. They're not coming to pick up 20 pallets of pavers. They're coming to grab some glue or some fabric or some piping or a cement bag or something like that, minimal items. The end of the day, they come in, the trucks will be parked back in their locations, locked up, and the employees will leave for the day and close their gate. There's no manufacturing, there's no processing, we're not making topsoil, we're not doing anything in that sort of a sense, which are being done at local neighboring properties, but that is not what we are doing here. We are mainly coming, parking, and then leaving in the next day and storing material in an organized way, which Mr. O'Donnell did do a walkthrough with me, and he can probably give you some better insight on how things are sort of arranged. We're very meticulous, and you could probably see that from the pictures.
Does any of the clients say, take some of the materials away because they don't want to leave it in the front of their house?
No, we contract, in our contract, that materials will be stored in the front or on the driveway for the duration of the project, and then cleaned up by the time the end of the project comes around and final payment. Most of my clientele are in communities such as Equestria, where they don't have to go very far to see my work. They are neighboring properties, so while I'll go for a meeting to present my 3D plans, my quote, my pricing, and then I'll walk them to the neighbor's house to see what we had just done there. That's how a lot of our references are done. I'm not bringing them to my property to see a display. They want to pick out paver colors, which I do with them. We go to Pantano's Nursery in Manalapan, and all of the pavers are on display. There's over 10,000 square feet of exhibits for people to see. So I'm not mimicking that at my location. We are just simply parking there and leaving.
In other words, you don't have, your clients do not come to your
They
yard.
do not come to my property, they do not come to my yard, and they do not come to my office.
So the drawings that you do, you said 3D drawings?
3D renderings,
That's
yes.
all done at the client's house?
That's done in my office and presented at the client's house.
That's what I
Yes.
presented at the client's house. Okay.
So we are seasonal. We do intend to start in March, and we end by November. By end, it means the trucks are parked and started up once a week so that the batteries and the overall maintenance of the truck is there and maintained and not sitting off. We do not do any snow removal in the winter. That's my personal choice because of liability and the impact and damage it does to vehicles and to people's properties, and we don't enjoy going and plowing snow and ripping up driveways and so on. So I have found to stay away from that. So we do shut down completely from, say, Thanksgiving through mid-March. The winter months, I do office work. We do contract our jobs for the spring. We do our permit process, land use permits, construction permits. I work with a licensed plumber local to Howell, work with a licensed electrician. So we're doing all of that permit process and paperwork in the winter and preparing for a busy spring.
You also get I met you were doing a lot of patios at Battleground, right? Battleground
Correct.
Country Club, where they have the houses.
That's where I had grown up, was in Battleground Country Club, so I did start my business in Battleground Country Club, driving a lawnmower through the neighborhood, and some people would laugh when I would be riding a mower down the street during the week right after school, and today we're driving trucks down the streets and installing patios and installing landscaping. So I did start out, with my own hands in the Battleground community of Manalapan, and we have developed to what we have today. And I am the sole owner of the company. My father does help advise me when he can, and he did help me in the purchase of the property, but I am the only one involved in running the business.
The trucks now, 2 questions. So first is maintenance.
all maintenance of the vehicles are done at the dealerships. We own all Isuzu trucks, so you can see in the pictures, it's a fleet of Isuzus. And all of that maintenance is done at the dealers. Ford of Old Bridge, which is the huge Ford dealer on Route 9 heading north. Everyone's probably seen it if they're in the area. That's where our maintenance is done. Machinery maintenance, we do maintenance at Pantano Nursery in Manalapan. They are an authorized seller of the equipment we use. Bobcat Machinery, we're fortunate to have Bobcat right up the road across from the cabin on 33, if anyone's familiar with that. Our machinery goes there for maintenance, so we do that sort of maintenance out of the area. Not to say that, if a belt breaks on a machine, we will change a belt, at my property, but we're not doing large things such as oil changes, air filters, in that sort of a sense. We're not equipped for that, and it's more efficient to be at a dealer. It's like going to the dentist versus pulling your teeth out in your living room. You go where all of the equipment is properly and readily available.
And what about in the winter? How do you store your vehicles?
They're stored the same way they are stored all year. They are out in the yard, and it's basically a closed gate, and we do not really run the equipment at all in the winter other than once a week to just start it up to keep the battery going.
And what about the shed? What do you plan to use with the shed?
The shed is just going to be a continuation. Basically, in the existing storage bins that we have, we will store my mini Bobcat machinery, which are the tractors. I find by keeping things stored and out of the wet and out of the snow, it makes things more tolerable and longer lasting rather than exposing it to the elements. So I did open up a storage unit with Mr. O'Donnell, and he did see inside, and we have 2 machines in there, and that's mainly the use. And then we have some organization in there of things like sprinkler fittings, conduit pipes, glues, adhesives for the pavers, light bulbs, pretty common things like that, and everything else we do purchase at the store. All of those units are locked and closed. We do have lighting on the home itself. We do have solar motion lights out in the back, which do run along the fence. They're at a 5-foot height facing the interior, so they are not actually visible from the street or outside, but they are in the yard vicinity.
Okay. Hold on one second. Go ahead. You said you had a question?
Yeah, you're a licensed chemical,
Yes.
you keep chemicals here?
We keep on the truck. We purchase at Reed and Perrine, which is probably the largest fertilizer distributor in the area. So daily activity for one fertilizer truck, which does not run full year because we're basically just doing it as a maintenance to our installations, such as fertilizing the trees and shrubs we install, or spraying in the month of June or July a pesticide on the trees we install for things such as Japanese beetles and webworms and common things that anyone who has
So
a
you
garden.
don't keep chemicals here?
We do not keep chemicals here. We purchase them at the store, use them for the day, and then the truck returns at the end of the day, and it is empty for the most part. For DEP terms, it's considered chemical in transit. It's not considered stored because it's stored on the truck, in the truck. It does have proper spill kits in the truck. We do get inspected by health inspectors randomly on the field to make sure we are adhering.
So this would be in each truck or one specific truck?
One specific truck.
And that truck is, basically that's, you don't store any chemicals on the ground or?
Correct. It's a box truck, and it is one specific truck, and it is driven and operated by a certified pesticide operator.
So if there are chemicals in there, they would be remnants
Correct.
of something that you did that day?
That's correct.
And what do you do with those remnants then?
They are used at other job sites. The regulation is that any excess material needs to be applied at the locations where they're applied. We do not dump chemicals or anything in that sense. It is properly distributed.
And what about once they're empty, these containers that have the chemicals? What do you do with those?
The truck that does do applications is a professionally built truck for pesticide applications. So there is an actual tank within that is installed bound to the floor, and that is considered a pesticide storage tank. It does sit empty, but it is an actual tank for the purpose of applying pesticides.
And what about Reed and Perrine? what do you get a reading for iron?
That would be the vendor that does supply us any sort of chemicals we need, such as granular fertilizer or liquid pesticides. We go there, stop there in the morning. Most of our jobs are in the vicinity, and when I would say jobs, I would actually call it a route, because that truck has a route of, let's say, 50 homes that we service, and we service those homes 3 to 4 times a year, fertilizing applications and pesticide applications for our installations.
So so that part of the business is
Is-
just for trees,
It's
not for the
minuscule.
lawn?
We do some lawns, but it is the minuscule part of our business. Our business is focused on the installation, but I do like to meet the needs of a client as far as being a full-service provider for caring. Again, if you call up and say, can you come mow our lawn, we won't be doing that sort of a sense in that maintenance, but we don't, push away a client after we do our installation. We do have long-term relations in that sense. And then as far as just the work day, work week ending, we do operate Monday through Friday. Saturday, we do about a half day, so maybe we'll operate 8, 9 o'clock until 12 o'clock. If a job does need to be finished, we do not go to start a job on Saturday because everyone is exhausted after the week. People are entertaining at their properties. We do mainly residential, so people don't want major noise and construction going on the weekend. And Sundays, per local municipality codes of almost every town, there's no construction permitted. So Sunday is a shutdown day. Let's see. We always do consider our neighbors. It is the house I live in, it is the office I operate, and it is our location for the landscape yard. So we do try to minimize any noise. We do tend to be pretty much the quietest one, I would say. I mean, I'm in the house at 8 o'clock at night, and I can hear tractor trailers zooming down the street. So we are very cautious and try to accommodate my neighbors, who are great people and who are very happy to see me at the property, and I become friends with them. So we do appreciate the location and look forward to continuing.
And you're only using, as you will see from a small portion of the site of the 10 acres, so
Yes.
in any event.
We are using approximately 2 acres of the 10 and a half acres. So we do maintain a very large buffer to our rear, and then to our sides, the neighboring kennel on the left, there is traffic that does go in and out of there because it's a kennel. People are dropping off their dogs, picking up their dogs. So there are vehicles going in and out of there constantly. That's my neighbor to the left. The neighbor to my right is George Harms, who has massive equipment, and it is a beautiful site and a beautiful operation and a great business model. And he does have 2 neighboring homes to the right of me, which are part of his property, which it seems employees live at. And then my neighbor across the street, who is a farm, horse farm. He does sell compost to the local. I do have an interest in that as well. And he does have horse stalls, he has livestock, and I do feel that we fit into the harmony of the community there.
Do you have any signs for your business?
We do not have a sign. There is a sign on the plan proposed.
It's a monument sign of a certain size. There it is, it's on the screen. Again, not trying to, in other words, no retail. People aren't going to stop in and say, what you got?
Mrs. Hardwick, I wouldn't call that a monument sign, but that's.
Well, no, I see that, I thought it was lower, actually. It's 6 foot height, okay. And whatever size the board would want us to have it, that's what we're showing. If you want to be 5 foot, 4 foot, we'll lower it.
Yeah, I had 2 quick questions. On the picture of the front of the house, there are some vehicles in the driveway. Is that for you and your office people? Okay.
Yeah. That driveway is used by me for the residents and my office
Okay.
assistant. And the other driveway to the far right is the driveway for the traffic of the rear. So I have my garages in the front. Those are not being affiliated with the business because that is the reason why I have all of the storage bins in the rear to be able to accommodate keeping everything in the back, behind
Okay,
the
and
fence.
the only other thing was, the stockade fence is pretty new, so what are those bushes in front?
So that's a 6-foot stockade fence that we did put in once we purchased the property.
Okay.
I did put in forsythia as a hedge plant along the front of the fence because I do prefer to see a live fence for beauty rather than looking at a wood fence.
Good idea.
So we did do a hedge-type material from the street, and then on the right side of the property, which would be the far right neighboring property, is heavily wooded, so from the street you do not see the stockade fence really at all. And the left side of the property is the dog kennel, who does also have a wooden stockade fence that runs along his property line as well. So those two fences are maybe 70 feet or so apart from each other, and they kind of go together.
Okay.
Did you inquire, you say you bought the place a year ago?
Yes.
Did you inquire about running a business out of here at that point?
No.
Did you cut trees already?
We did put in a tree removal permit when we did put in a permit for the fence.
So you did cut trees already?
Yes.
Did you
As
cut
per
like
our-
this, what are you using, maybe?
If I may, at the time of application, the township did not know a business was running from here. The permit was issued based on the understanding that it was a residential property. I'm not sure of how many trees were cut at that time. The fence also has a 6-foot gate in the back of the property that I'd like to hear some testimony on, but even looking at the existing, or the survey provided, it does look like most of the backyard was heavily wooded before the tree removal permit was taken
Said
out.
it was considerable clearing
We
down
we
already.
can, we can,
There was a gravel road going from the street to the rear. That might be shown on a survey, the initial survey. Right there, it's being called Dirt Drive. That's actually what initially caught my attention to the property because the sales sign was listed right near the Dirt Drive, and I drove down the Dirt Drive, and you can see sort of the open area of the wood line, and that's what sparked my interest to here I can have my home in the front, and I can have my landscaping equipment and business in the rear because there was a dirt drive, and you can see the wooded area, so we just expanded upon clearing that wooded area at the time of submitting the permit through the land use department for the fence and for the tree removal. So there was a dirt drive and there was a clearing into the rear of the yard, which you can see here on the survey.
what kind of trees were there when you got your permit to remove? Were they, can you express what they were like at the time?
There, a lot of the trees, and actually, if you do go towards the rear of the property, a lot of the trees are actually fallen, I would say, from previous storms or whatnot. It is a lot of oak trees, and then a lot of the outer perimeter. This actually, to the left side of the property, if you're looking at where it says Lot 14, Karen, Gregory, and Nancy, and follow that down to my property line, there is probably approximately 100 foot by 20 foot of a cement pad there, which was chicken farming in the past. So that land was all at one time clear. What had grown would be weedy type of vegetation. I wouldn't call it shade trees, what has regrown in the areas that are cleared for my landscape yard. It is actually weedy types of vegetation, woody type plants. However, that whole area where the dirt drive is going on back was at one point, I can't give you a specific time, it was chicken farming because there is at this moment a pre-existing concrete pad there at least 100 feet in length by 20 feet wide. So that area was all at one time clear. And what had been done is the property was neglected as I bought this property from an extremely elderly woman who had moved to a nursing home after I had purchased the property from her. So the house had probably been on decline for the past 20 or 30 years that she's been living there. Her husband had passed away previously. So it was a chicken farm or some sort of farming agriculture there in the past. The dirt drive led to what was and still is an existing cement pad right now. And what had regrown was not what I would call a dense woods. I would call it woody vegetation in a weedy manner. So basically the type of things you see growing along highways, that sort of vegetation, which can grow into a huge 30-foot tree. But it is not something that I would call a pretty forest. It's something that regrew and regenerated as a result of not keeping up with clearing the land because of whatever sort of farming practice was there in the past.
You concur, Matt? Or-
We hadn't done any inspection prior to the tree removal permit. At the time, the tree removal permit was taken out to keep 20 trees in one area and 30 trees in another. That's pretty much the two vegetated areas you see on the site plan. Our ordinance doesn't really restrict, there's a recommendation for keeping a certain amount of trees, but there is no restriction on removing. So at that time, when I reviewed it, the amount being left seemed to meet the goals of the ordinance of maintaining soil conditions, not creating erosion, not creating problems for neighbors. We didn't have any complaints at that time of the tree removal, so had no reason to deny the permit. Had we known a business was being run from there, or would be in the future, there probably would have been woodlands management implications to that. But at that time, we had no reason to think it was anything other than residential.
And in reality, most of the site, the wooded site is not being touched. Just the back portion of it.
There's
So
about
that-
8 acres.
Yeah, over the size of the property, it is a very large property. That was part of the consideration as well, that the rear property line is 1,000 feet, 800 feet back, no wetlands on the property. That was all checked during the tree removal, but
Okay. Jack?
As far as your house and everything, you live there. If the board looks favorable upon your application, would you have a problem that it has to be owner occupied?
No.
So you couldn't sublet it to someone else? It would be strictly for...
I am living there, yeah.
The answer is yes, Jack. We discussed that. We will not rent this to anybody. If the business was even sold, it would have to be the person who was you could ask the question, what happens if he sells the business? It would have to be a restriction that it has to be,
So that's going to be a restriction.
right.
The owner must live
The owner,
there.
or theoretically, I guess, a person who runs the operation could live there, but it would not be to a third person who has no interest in the
Okay.
development of this site, or the working of this site.
We have in the past, Mr. Chairman, said either be owner occupied or the operator of the business would have to live there,
Okay.
is the way we looked at it. What do you do for restrooms for your employees?
Well, we have it,
You have porta johns out there?
No.
They use your house? What do they?
They are permitted to use my house. We generally start our operation in the morning fueling at the local Quick Check, which is under 1 mile away. So that would be the common resource to the restroom. However, I'm not going to deny any of my employees, and I do not deny any of my employees from using the restroom in my house.
Okay. You're obviously looking for a site plan waiver, obviously. So, and I guess your engineer or your...
he's going to speak to that, and
We'll-
he's going
we'll-
to speak
we'll
to the
come back.
drainage.
I
Yes,
have
he
other
will.
questions.
That's why he's here, yes.
Would he be the person, Jerry, to ask about dedication for the road?
Yes, and I'll put my 2 cents in on that, too.
That they'd be willing, if they approve it, to provide the appropriate half width? Need 33 foot, which means you probably got to give 16 and a half.
I'll ask Mark, I don't know what that does for us, but certainly dedication, or certainly an easement at the very least.
I didn't ask for road improvements.
I know.
I just asked to match up. I think
We would-
Mr. Harms has that already.
All right, if we would match up to Mr. Harms, at least, if not a dedication, then an easement that township can always utilize without having to come to ask
Well, it
us
would
to
be
do it.
dedication. I leave it up to the board.
Right.
If there's any road widening, it doesn't appear that would be apropos at this time, but it can always be added to it. You talk about the sign. I'll leave it up. I guess Allison's going to testify on the
Yes.
sign, on the size. Also on the fence, the height of the fence.
Well, the
6
fence
The
is-
setback,
It's,
the
6 foot
setback.
stockade
it's
fence.
6 foot stockade fence, so that's,
It's existing, but it's violation.
yes, we would need that approval, obviously, yes.
And then I guess, should they look for a waiver of site plan granted, I guess Mr. Libra come back and address what he can do for stormwater?
That's what he's going to do right now.
Okay.
Listen,
And,
when Mr.
Lastly, probably one of the most important things, and you're probably lucky that the chairman's not sitting there, but You are next to a farm. Farm buffer of 50 feet is required on your north side. Obviously, your septic's already in it. Your live plant area is there, but your hardscape storage, can they be shifted over to preserve the 50-foot buffer?
I would, not the septic, obviously, but
Well,
certainly,
I asked that question,
you're right, not
and
the
whether it
septic.
would be landscaped.
If the board so wanted, at this point, it's just like they have their fence, meaning the kennel is right next to us, basically. You can see the kennel right from our property. If the board wants us to see what we can do about moving, it's not the fence so much, because there's no farming being done there anyway. It's up to the board.
All right, and then lastly, on your gravel driveway, at least to the employee parking area, employee area, possibly do a section of paved so we don't get any stones or gravel out into the road. Mr. Lieber will address that?
We agree with that. Yes, the answer is yes, so that there won't be any stone that would ever come on the roadway.
All right, and remember, you are here for a use variance for commercial operation in the ARE 2.
Yes,
Or AR 6.
yes, we are,
Okay.
and that's why we're going to have the testimony that we're going to have.
And I will wait, I have no further questions.
Okay. Mika, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Justin, just to go back, I believe you have a house and an office. Would office have a separate entrance for the employees? I know there are going to be 2 office employees.
Yes.
So is there like a separate entrance for them to enter?
Main entrance from the front of the home,
Okay.
which is the main entrance to the house itself.
Okay.
And there is an entrance from the rear of the home, which can be accessed for employees that may be in the rear of the yard.
So in the morning when your workers come in,
They're-
they would be entering your house
They will be
and,
entering the gates that they drive in through to get to the employee parking.
You're talking about, when you say we have the 2 employees that come in,
Office employees.
they're separate from the other folks.
okay,
So you
They
want,
would be entering through the main entrance to the house. yes.
okay, all right. And they obviously would be having access to the restrooms and facilities, but rest of your employees would typically not because they leave the
They have
site.
access to it if needed.
Okay.
they're not there, basically. Through the day, how many people are on the site?
In the rear of the yard throughout the day, it's very unlikely that you'll see anyone there. But again, there is maybe 1 or 2 trucks that will come in to pick up some material, but they're generally not coming there and saying, hey, I came here to use the restroom. It's, I came here to pick up some material.
Okay. In terms of equipment and the type of equipment, I know you did suggest there are some lawn mowers, then there's going to be some other kind of equipment. Would you be able to tell us what types and how many?
Yes, I would estimate the equipment type is Bobcat skid steers, which is basically a compact machine, no larger than the length of this table right here that Mr. Sonneblek is sitting at. And approximately that width. We do work in a lot of the adult communities, new community construction, so we do tend to have smaller equipment to be able to fit into 1/4 acre properties. So we do have, let's say, 5 of these skid steer Bobcats,
Okay.
1 mini excavator, which I do believe is in your pictures that you were handed out, 1 farm tractor,
Okay.
and 2 lawnmowers for maintaining our property.
Okay.
You also,
Small equipment, I don't think you would count. I mean, a handheld equipment, I
No.
don't think that's.
It's just these big ones.
Yeah.
Now, would these be stored inside the storage bins?
In the storage bins or in the trailer. They are all machinery that do fit in either the towed enclosed trailers, which we do have on the plan, or fit within the 20-foot storage bins that we have on site.
Okay.
and
Aside from the mini excavator, which stays on a trailer.
And for those folks who don't live in age-restricted communities, before you could ever build anything in any of these communities, there's an architectural committee from those communities that you have to get
Yes.
stamp approval, which is sometimes kind of difficult in these communities. We represent homeowners associations, and they're very careful as to what they permit to be put into their,
Equipment-wise.
into A, how to do it, what bonding you have, what insurance you have, and what it looks like. And they have to give you a letter that says, and you put up a bond, I guess, do you?
Yes.
They actually have to put up in the community an actual bond to even to build the patio or whatever they're doing.
Okay, so basically you would have 13 storage bins on site. Obviously, 7 of them are attached to the tractor trailer.
No, that's incorrect. The storage units, which are going to be permanently placed at the property, permanent in the matter that they're placed, they are technically shipping containers, so they are not permanent. There are 4 shown in the storage bin section above employee parking, and 2 shown to the rear right side of the property behind the truck and trailer location. So those are the 6 storage unit bins. They are 20 foot in length, 8 foot in height, 8 feet wide. Those can house the machinery, but generally the machinery is on the job site. So if it's either left at the job site or it is in the enclosed trailer that the truck is towing to the job site.
Okay.
So those trailers that are connected to the trucks, they're mobile storage. They're not actual technically storage units. They're actual trailers with wheels that are towed to the job and either towed daily if it's a job location that we are not permitted to leave a trailer overnight, or left on site.
Okay. So the equipment can be in these or on the 6
Correct.
bins.
Generally, things are not out and about in the yard for the purpose of security and just organization, and again, just the maintenance of the machinery. It's obviously better to be closed and away than out and exposed to the elements of rain and snow and so on.
Okay. This is actually a question more for the land use director and maybe the applicant also. I believe there are 6 storage bins, temporary bins. Would they need permits for those, or?
Yes,
How would-
and our ordinance does not permit type storage trailers, C-boxes on site for more than 60 days. You're allowed 2 permits a year, so that's 2 storage boxes. They're called portable storage containers by our ordinance for 60 days. You could have 1, get double permit for 120 days, but the number and the duration, the fact that they're going to be permanent, is not provided in our ordinance that way.
We would be asking, I think in that event, we would be asking, assuming that the board would grant approval, for the approval from this board to have those bins as located where they are on a permanent basis, because they're not seen by anybody and the like, based on our testimony, and that would be something we would look to the board for specifically.
And also the intention of why we left the tree buffer above the employee parking was for that matter, that we will not be seeing storage bins from the street.
So that's a treat area, is that correct?
That's
Between the
wooded,
employee parking and the
untouched,
bins.
correct.
Untouched.
And on top of that, we did actually install a hedge line along that to help buffer that from the street. So there is a hedge line at the front of the property, in front of the fence. There's a hedge line behind that, and there's also a hedge line in addition to a wooded area there to block off the storage bins from the street. So we were conscientious in our setup to for the curb appeal from the street.
Understood, but I just want to bring everything forward now before. The other question, obviously, since we are making these permanent, I guess another stipulation I would recommend for the board is no stacking in case you have increasing
Yes, and
commercial enterprise.
That
That
makes
would
sense,
be one of the
absolutely.
suggestions. In terms of another question for operation, I believe you said you would be taking care of the garbage and the hauling. Would you have like a specific timing of when that would be hauled in and out of the property, or?
Well, we make sure we don't go over capacity, so it could be once a week, it could be twice a week, and it could be once every 2 weeks. But I am a registered self-generating garbage hauler with the DEP as well, so we do take that residual waste, which we self-generate. We're not out advertising as a junk removal company or something in that sense. It's just our surplus material and whatnot, and we do dispose of that in a manner that it's not going to create a sort of an issue on the property.
So I'm just trying to understand, would there be a garbage truck coming to the property?
No, we would be loading our actual dump truck, because all of
Okay.
our dump trucks are registered haulers.
Okay.
for Residual waste, which is garbage.
All right. And would you be doing that during the work hours, or would it be before 7 o'clock or after?
Before before 7 o'clock. It would be, generally, we do that in the afternoon.
Okay,
So this way, it's ready to go the next morning. The truck can just leave.
okay. In terms of- Sorry, one last question. I know you have 6 employee parking, and you said seasonal, there might be 20. Now, do these people, I'm assuming they do carpool or things like that, then they come and park on the site, and they take the trucks and go away, and the cars remain on the site?
For the day, and then in the evening, when the trucks return, they leave in their cars.
Okay, and,
Sometimes also the trucks and trailers will leave the site and maybe pick up employees out, so that, if it is 20 employees at a peak, not everyone is coming to this site.
okay.
They come directly to the site where they're gonna work.
Exactly.
Would there be room for overflow parking or anything like that? I know you've guaranteed 6 parking spaces, but,
I mean, that'd probably be more of an engineering question or the planner, but I do believe that we can double park a few spaces if it was necessary, but we have not come across that, and given our setup of the quantity of trucks and trailers that we're requesting to have at the property, I think everything is sort of scaled to the operation that, we're running and looking to continue running.
In theory, are you saying that you could have 6, in other words, as long as they were long enough, the spots that you're showing there, they could have 2 cars in tandem?
They can be double
As opposed
parked.
to not on top of each other, just in tandem, so you could have 12 cars parked there if you ever have that many, and they just have to be moved at that time when they
Yes.
come back.
okay. I would just reiterate Jack's comment about probably making it a little more permanent for striped parking, at least for the employee parking area.
Okay.
And I think that's it for operations for now. I have other questions for other experts. Thank you.
Yes.
I just have one final question. In the fence permit you took out in February, the back fence line had a 6-foot gate. What's the area behind the fence going to be used for, if any, for the business?
Well, on our permit that we had pulled, we had gone 800 feet in the fence, which was to the rear of the property. We have only actually fenced in what you see present here, which is probably 200 feet of the property. So that 200, from the corner of the home, on the right and left front of the home, the property is fenced in solely this area that we're proposing to use. So the rear 8 acres are to remain heavily wooded, untouched, unfenced. If we ever did want to do something with that, we would be here again.
You'd have to come back to the board to increase the size of this operation ever.
Anything else? Okay, so before the engineer comes back, we're going to take a 10-minute break. And let's come back at 9:25.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The board will now recess. Board will now reconvene.
You're going to talk about the engineering. You go through the engineering report. I think
Okay, so
at
before
this
we
point,
Hold on, Jerry.
I'm
Before we
holding, I'm
start,
holding.
before we start, anybody in the audience for case number BA 17-09, NIA Hanson Management as agent for Fairfield Industry Park, LLC?
Yes, good evening. For the record, Mark Policastro, attorney for the applicant.
Yes.
I got it this time.
We understand that this matter will not be heard this evening, and so therefore we are requesting that it be carried without additional further notice required.
Okay.
That'll be fine.
So-
Mr. Chairman, I believe we've appointed a date of November
November
13th,
November
without further public notice, if the board, please.
Okay.
At 7:30, regular meeting?
7:30,
Yeah.
Excellent.
regular meeting.
We appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so for case number BA 17-09, NIA Hanson Management as agent for Fairfield Industrial Park, LLC, carried to no further notice on November 13th.
You could see it from when we were there. You could see so that's which kind of against farm use. So, and it was used for chickens before, whatever the hell,
All right, Mr. Sonnenblick.
Thank you. At this
Start.
point, utilizing, again, you've heard all the testimony, and of course, you were aware of it previously from Justin Tao, and you've seen the CME report dated August 14th, 2017 from Jack Mallon. Correct?
Yes. Sorry, I'm
Right.
doing two things at once.
In relation to that, one of the issues, and in fact, Mr. O'Donnell actually just brought it up too, but had discussed that, in terms of having some type of permanent structure underneath the trucks. Can you explain what it is, as I think it's comment number,
It's in Jackson's letter.
is it Jackson? Yeah, Jackson report, I'm looking to the, specifically. All right, let's see. His comment number. Wrong report. It's the report of July 20th, 2017, from T&M, Jack Mallon. And number 8 is, and by the way, the business sign, we will meet the code of the town. We don't need a big business sign. We'll put up whatever they permit, which is like a 4-foot sign, gross 4 foot, so square foot. So it'll be a tiny sign, just indicating that's where this place is. That's all. Because we don't have any retail in any of it, so that we'll meet that. That was his a number, the business sign. But number 8. Right. What will the applicant do to prevent pollution from the equipment, i.e., the trucks? So would you speak to that?
Yes, I actually have a handout I'm going to pass around, I guess, 810.
Well, if you want to, Jack, do you want it to be 8? We do have a handout to show what we would do. Anything we do would have to be subject to your engineer agreeing that it does what it's supposed to do. They can pass it out, and you explain what it is, please, Mark.
Yeah, Mark 810 and description, please.
This is a clipping of sheet 3 where the trucks are parked. What I'm proposing to do in this area is to construct a 55-foot wide and 80-foot long concrete pad. That's 4,400 square feet. In New Jersey, when we look at rainfall and runoff, the storm that we're most concerned with is the water quality storm. And that's a 1.25-inch rainfall in 2 hours. So this pad would be draining to itself. The low point would be in the center. There would be an inlet there. Within that inlet would be a filtration device, so that when it did rain, the water would pass through that device and then into these chambers, which are located underneath the pad. And these chambers would be sized for that water quality storm, so that the pollution concern would be addressed through this type of a setup.
Jack, is that acceptable?
That would be fine. That's comparable to what we do sometimes in the self-storage areas where they store. We put units like this. This is fine.
Okay, good.
Hey, my concern, I talked to Mr. Lieber and I said,
Okay.
well, what are you going to do with the drippings from the trucks and everything? This is how he's done it, so I think that'll take care of it.
Are there any other, in terms of engineering comments, in terms of what you've presented, that you've responded to all of the questions that were in his report as to how this is going to operate, and our client did as well. The sign is no longer there. We have the existing, of course, Allison will speak to that, the front yard setback, the side yard, the lot width, which are existing, obviously. So it's not engineering, they just exist. And we've asked for waivers, his number 3, with regard to topography, contours, wooded areas, stone, and so forth and the like. In your opinion, as an engineer, is that, you think that what we presented is sufficient, or is there anything else that we could do that, and we could ask Mr. Mallon, is there anything that he would want us to do for number 3, assuming a site plan was waived, is there anything more that he would want us to do from a location point of view?
Okay, so we're actually asking for a waiver to provide a site plan. I wanted to talk about that a little bit. When you look at the township's checklist, and you're proposing something to develop, in this particular instance, we're not developing, we're not constructing buildings, and we're not constructing parking lots for public use and sidewalks and things of that nature. Really, what you see out there is really what we're asking for. And I have no issue with putting together grading details for the drainage area for the trucks, or I can even assemble a grading detail for the pavement of the employee parking spaces. But the reason that we had requested these waivers is because I feel that they're not really applicable to what we're really asking for. A lot of the improvements that are on this property are simply being placed at existing grade. The house is not being enlarged. We're not expanding. We're not generating a lot of noise. We're not generating a lot of traffic. So that was the purpose for requesting those waivers. There's one item that we do need to discuss, which is the applicability of the farm buffer to the north. We haven't discussed that yet tonight. And I looked at the plan before the meeting, and it seems that we could easily shift the storage of the hardscape and live plant area to be 50 feet off the property line. But I did want to point out that when you're looking at this property from the street, and you look next door on the left where the kennels are located, although his driveway is on the left of his property, on the right of his property along our fence line are where actually all the dog kennels and dog runs are located. So I wasn't sure, and I needed more guidance as to if the buffer would be applicable, and really what are we buffering from. We're not proposing to construct a building in that 50 feet. We're just proposing to store some materials at grade. One of the areas is actual plants. So I don't know if that would infringe on the intention of a buffer, but if the board was concerned, that we could certainly move those storage areas to be 50 feet away.
The planner will speak to that as well. It was always my understanding, and I've been involved in the farm buffer issue over many, many years, and certain people have certain thoughts about it and the like. But one of the reasons for the farm buffer that was expressed at all times was that residents who would move in would then complain about the farmer farming his land. They didn't have the 50-foot buffer from his property, and that, of course, is farthest from the case in this particular situation. So I would argue, not as a professional, I would just do it as an attorney subsequent to our planner speaking. You do have a farm buffer, but in this case it's there. They have the kennel is there, the fence is there, their fence is there. There would be apparently no practical reason to have the 50-foot farm buffer because the property isn't being farmed. I mean, it's just not being farmed. So it just happens to be in the RA6 zone. So once again, that would be something, as Mr. Lieber indicated, if you want us to shift the storage specifically, the hardscape storage, was it?
Right.
And move that away from the side property line, which nobody's going to see anyway, we could do it physically, but that's up to you if you want us to do that.
I'll leave that up to the board members. Okay.
And how do you enforce it behind a 6-foot fence?
There was one more issue that we have to discuss, which is regarding the width of the right-of-way along the property. Based upon the master plan and the width requirements for this portion of the street, we would have to dedicate some right-of-way, which I don't see as that being any issue from a usability and a functionality standpoint, but I do want to point out it would affect the existing front yard setback to the house, which is about 80.2 feet, and in the zone, it requires 100 feet. It's an existing nonconformity. Again, the house was here before, so we're not moving the house, but if you were to dedicate another 16 and a half feet of right-of-way, then that front yard setback would be further reduced, which I don't find to be problematic. I just wanted to put it on the record.
Or, as I indicated, it could be, and we've done this in other municipalities, it could be an easement so that it still stays the same distance behind, but the town would always have the right to come in, or whoever, to widen the road, assuming Yellowbrook Road was going to be widened. They wouldn't have to go to the property owner and say, or give any money
So it could
to
be,
get the right to widen the road.
and that's okay, Jack? If
Oh,
it- with
you're
the
talking about a road easement instead of a road dedication?
Either or, right?
Yeah. Well, one is, the easement is fine, because then we don't have
It achieves the
same purpose.
same purpose if he does a road easement instead of a dedication. As long as we have the right, if you look at the map, the neighbor to the north already has the right-of-way dedicated. The lot next to him on the south does not, but Mr. Harms does. So that would only leave that one small lot that would be left. So if they do a road easement, it gives us the same ability to do what we want to do.
But whatever you want, whether it be any dedication or easement, it's okay with us, just making that point, that's all.
Okay.
It won't change anything.
If we get a road easement, doesn't change the setbacks,
Right.
Okay.
which is there. So we do a road easement.
Anything else, Mr. Lever?
How about the driveway apron?
We're gonna put the,
You're gonna put a driveway
we're gonna
apron
put
on-
that in,
on bo-
that's
on both?
correct.
Both? Both?
Well, the question is, does the board want us to have, that would be a question. We have a gravel driveway to the house, which has always been there. We certainly can put in, right at the front, at the driveway, at the roadway, we could put in some pavement, but not back. I mean, it's up to you.
Usually ask for 25 feet, the length of a vehicle,
Oh, from the road.
from the road in, yes.
In, well, okay,
That gives us, it keeps the stones and everything kicked out in the road.
done, no problem.
Okay. Good.
Jack, that would be,
Both driveways.
Yeah, I would say on both.
Yeah,
would too.
On both, on
Yeah, on
both.
both.
and now it's asphalt, Jack?
Whatever the driveway is. Asphalt's fine. Our road, typical driveway spec. I think it's 1.5 on 3, I think.
It'll have to meet, Mr. Mallon's,
Okay.
okay, whatever we put in there.
Okay, good.
Both of them. That one too. 25. Okay. Does it? Does it?
I think I covered everything. I'm just looking through one more last time. Yes, I think I'm through.
Thank you, no further questions to this witness, I would bring my planner up, because you guys.
I do just have one more quick question.
Go ahead.
Are you done? Taking a look at one of the photos, it looks like the front driveway to the north has been expanded. Can we reflect that on the plans properly? Because it is against the ordinance to park vehicles on the front yard if it isn't the driveway, and the site plan doesn't reflect, it looks like, the conditions.
This one.
Matt, is that B? Page 2?
By the garage of the house you're talking about?
Picture from the roadway facing the house, yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's the residential
That's-
parking there, actually.
Yeah, actually, it's picture B, right?
Correct.
Yeah. By the way, normally there aren't this many cars here, but everybody wanted to see the drone, so I had somebody, and then Justin's father was there, and somebody else was there. That's how we're able to get the angles of the photos.
Oh, you did this by drone.
By
okay.
drone,
So
like-
normally, you're not...
Normally, you don't have this many cars there.
Okay.
Okay.
It does look like a driveway, though, based on the picture. It looks like it's
It does look
it's
bigger.
disturbed and meant for that, so.
Okay, so
I'd
let
like
me
it to meet the
update-
5-foot setback for the driveway and to be called out in the site plan as such.
Okay, let me
Right,
write this down.
25 foot of stone, of asphalt or typical driveway material.
Yeah.
All right, I got that.
All right, anybody on the board has any further questions for the engineer?
Allison's job easier and easier.
Anybody?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Lieber, are you going to address the three, just at least cite the three variances that were, or waivers that were put on our memo, CME memo, regarding The first one about the public sidewalk. Are you,
We would ask for the waiver from the sidewalk because there's no sidewalk there now, and
You can't testify.
yeah.
I know.
What page, what
Right,
page?
I thought your planner might
It's
have
on
might have
page
noted that, right?
3 of our memo, August 14th memo, page 3. It's item C, section 188-225G.
I see, okay, I'm with you.
Okay,
All right, so there's really 3 items here.
yeah.
The first one is that areas for properties expected to experience heavy traffic shall be paved. That's the first one.
That one we have, it's the 119A, all residential dwellings should be served by a paved or concrete driveway, including pavers, G. I believe that's what's being referred to right now.
Well,
Is it G or-
if he's going through all the 3, maybe he should just go through all the 3 and just.
That's okay. So I'm looking at 188-106F1.
Yeah,
So in this particular instance, we're requesting to keep what's there now. This is not like a commercial or industrial site, and I don't really feel that the type of traffic is considered heavy traffic. We are trying to keep the rural appearance out here. And to be frank, from an engineering perspective, unnecessary paving results in then stormwater management detention, which results in further disturbance. So I'd rather keep it the way it is. As far as Part B, it's also tied into the same issue about in commercial or industrial areas, driveways have to be 30 feet wide minimum. This is not the type of a use where there's constant in and out, in and out. It's fully controlled by the applicant. It's his private property. So you're not likely to find trucks passing each other through this gate. And I believe at the gate, it's about 15 or 16 feet wide. So again, to have a 30-foot wide driveway would just be unnecessary, and it's not really needed for the use here, so we would ask for a waiver from that.
would that 15-foot driveway be enough for the type of trucks accessing the site?
It is. The trucks are less than 8 feet wide,
Okay,
so it's adequate for, their in and out, which is really once or so a day.
And we only have the, what is it, seven trucks that we even have totally, and they're not going out at the same time, and they're coming in at another time, so they're not going in and out.
okay.
And the fire trucks were okay?
Yes, the fire company's okay.
How wide is that gate?
I believe it's 16 from end to end.
And we'll put the
But
Knox
with-
box there.
That,
The Knox box
They
would
want a
be,
Knox box.
that would be provided, that's fine.
it's a 16-foot gate, though.
The last item is 188-225G, and that's regarding the installation of public sidewalks. I took a look on this road, and there's no sidewalk anywhere near here, actually. So we would ask for a waiver from providing sidewalk here.
If Mr. Amato were here, I'd ask if he would shovel it for us in case it snowed. So I would get,
It's part of where he is.
right,
It's
right.
silicone on the shovel.
So I could get a good response from him.
There was 2 comments, F, about the minimum lot width.
That's existing.
That's an existing item, but I think it requires a plan revision, which will be fine. And then, and I can describe why it was 158. We took the width at the middle of the lot, so we can revise that. And then on G, again, about the driveway, a residential dwelling shall be served by a paved or concrete driveway.
We just discussed that.
Similar to what we discussed, we will provide an apron,
The 25-foot, right.
asphalt, and then we want to maintain the look that we have now.
Thank you.
Everything. Any questions from the board of this witness? He'll still be here if you have something else after the planner speaks. I won't let him leave.
Okay, good. All right, we'll go with the planning.
Allison?
Hello.
Your name, credentials, see if you'll accept you as a planner.
Allison Coffin, licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey, certified by the American Institute of Certified Planners. carried that license and certification for about 14 years now. I've been accepted as an expert witness in front of about 80 communities throughout the state. I've appeared here quite a few times.
We accept your credentials.
Thank you. In narrative fashion, rather than my asking you questions, what did you undertake to provide testimony with regard to the request for use variance and any waivers that we're asking for, and what is your opinion?
Well, to prepare for tonight, I visited the site, interviewed the applicant, looked at their operation, looked at the application, the plans that were submitted, reviewed the zoning ordinance and the master plan, read the professionals' reports, and came to my conclusions. The site is a 10.2-acre lot with 250 feet of frontage on Yellow Brick Road. The lot is narrow relative to the zoning requirements and extremely deep. It's more than 2,000 feet deep, so it's kind of a spaghetti box of a lot. The site contains an existing dwelling which is located partially within the required front and side yards, and these are pre-existing non-conforming conditions. The applicant proposes to use this site as a landscape design and maintenance business, with the home being occupied as a residence, as an owner-operator situation, with office in that front building in support of the business. The rear of the site is proposed to be used for the storage of the vehicles and for employee parking. The site is in the ARE 6 zone. Permitted uses in the zone include agriculture and horticulture, single-family residences, municipal buildings and public purpose buildings, and community residences. The proposed landscaping design and maintenance use aspect of this use is not permitted in the zone, so a D1 variance is required. There are some other variances in addition to the width of front yard and side yard that we're discussing tonight. The paving, the ingress and egress areas, the driveway width of 30 feet where 15 feet exists at the gate, and the provision of sidewalks, which are not proposed. We've eliminated the variance or the waiver requested for the signs. And I think we're looking at a waiver for 50-foot farmland buffer, which the applicant can provide greater buffer depth than what's shown on the plans at the board's discretion. It's my opinion that special reasons exist for the granting of the requested use variance, and in that the site is particularly suited to the proposed use, and there is no significant detriment to the zone plan or the surrounding neighborhood and residential properties in the area that would result from the granting of these variances. The special reasons for the granting of the use variance exist in this case, and that the purposes of the municipal land use law will be advanced due to the particular suitability of the site to the particular use. The site is located in an area of mixed uses, including on the lot to the north, there's a dog kennel use, and it's farmed for firewood. Other uses north of the site include a mix of residential, agricultural, and beyond that, commercial uses. The lots to the west across the street contain a stable and a tree pruning business that's run out of a home. The lot to the immediate south contains a home, and there are residences there associated with the George Harm construction yard and several other industrial uses that are located further on south of the site. To the east is a new residential development, but that is more than 1,000 feet from the proposed activity on the site. It will not be in any way impacted by this business use. The landscaper yard is a good fit for this unique and diverse neighborhood. From the frontage, this lot will continue to have what is primarily a residential appearance. The equipment storage is hidden behind the home, behind a 6-foot-high fence, and behind the trees that are proposed between the parking area and the truck storage. This lot, because of that existing combination of fencing, home, and that treed area, provides the opportunity to tuck those trucks out of public view. The kennel to the north would not be impacted by the landscaping business. In fact, the business is likely a more appropriate neighbor than a residence, given the proximity of the home to the kennels, which is not a quiet use. Given the other uses on the street generate commercial and industrial traffic already, the landscaping vehicles that are similar to the traffic types already on Yellow Brick Road that are proposed for this site would not be introducing a new type of traffic into this area. The variances can be granted without detriment. The use itself would not result in any detriment. The use is keeping in character with the development that already exists along Yellow Brick Road. The landscaper's yard can be screened from the roadway by the existing home, fencing, and landscaping, so it will not impact the visual character of the area. The homes to the south and east have adequate screening due to the depth of the existing undisturbed woodlands between the used portion of this site and the homes located on those properties. The bulk variances and waivers that are requested would not result in any detriment. The lot width is a pre-existing condition. the front and side yard setback to the home are existing conditions. We have a fence that's also located slightly within the front yard setback, and this is due to the existing location of the house and the desire to align the fence with the house. So we have a 91-foot setback to the fence, is more than adequate in this case to ensure that the fence does not have an imposing presence on the roadway, though it does technically require relief. The driveway width that's proposed at 15 feet at the gate where 30 feet is required will adequately function for this site, which will have no public visiting the rear storage of the yard. But beyond being adequate for the site, I think the 15-foot gate is a better solution for this property because it's more in keeping with the residential character of the ARE6 zone than a 30-foot wide gate would be. It's also my opinion that there's no substantial impairment to the master plan or the zoning ordinance that results from the requested variances. Now, the purpose of the ARE6 zone itself includes the preservation of rural and agricultural uses and the preservation of rural character, and it embodies the rural and agricultural countryside of the township's planning program that it sought to maintain. The proposed use does not impact this goal, and the proposed layout, since it maintains the existing character of the site in the area from the street, would not have any detriment to this goal.
In addition, the fact that there is a significant setback from the age-restricted equestrian community, I think, is something that should be important to the location of this site
Yes.
in terms of it meeting the intent of the township's master plan, since they did permit the equestrian to come in and be built.
The excessive depth of this lot does allow for a lot of screening to that adjacent residential community.
And even in effect, even the use of it for residential or farming would, in theory, could create a significantly more disturbance than is being proposed.
Yes, I could.
I have no further questions to this witness at this time.
Any questions from the board? Professionals, Mika?
Mr. Chair, if I may. So the use variance we're seeking today is for residents as well as a contractor, storage yard and office use
Yes.
on the site.
Yes.
Okay. Just going back to the master plan, the 2006 land use plan, did you happen to look what it designates the site for?
I don't recall the year of the master plan I looked at,
Okay.
although I've been told that one of them does designate it for SED, but it was not rezoned subsequently.
Yes, that's true. And the 2006 land use plan designates this for the ARE6 zone. If you could just kind of give us a little more as to why you think this use fits in the ARE zone as opposed to, I mean, why would you say it's particularly suitable for this
I
zone?
wouldn't say that you'd want this use anywhere in the ARE6 zone, but that this particular pocket has a unique character where there's a mix of residences and commercially oriented uses. It's very close to the boundary of the SED zone, so you have a lot of industrial traffic that goes up and down this road. So this particular part of the ARE6 zone, I think, can support a landscaping contractor's yard such as this. Beyond that, this use, while it is industrial in character, it's sort of adjacent in terms of use to the type of agricultural uses that are permitted in the zone, in that it's a landscaping use. It makes use of that sort of material that's generated by a nursery, which would be a permitted use. So it's not wholly out of character with the intent to have that agriculture and rural use within that area.
If in fact, going further towards the question, if this were a landscaping facility, which could also have retail on it, in other words, from
You mean a nursery?
a nursery, in other words, basically, you could have significantly more and more intense use of the property and much more traffic and more hours of operation
Yes.
than is being proposed for
Yes,
this.
if you were growing and selling plant material directly on the site, it would be a conforming use, but would have much greater impact.
And you could have retail sales in the front. In the nursery,
Oh.
which is, I'm not suggesting in the area
Quizzing
6.
me on this.
In other words, in the nursery, if a nursery is permitted, the nurseries are permitted to have sales.
I'm not 100%
No,
sure
okay.
that that's permitted in the AR6, but it is customary at nurseries to have some direct sales.
No further questions.
So if I may go back to, based on what Jerry also just said, would you agree to the stipulation that there won't be any retail on this side? Because
what?
any retail on this side?
Absolutely.
Yes.
No retail, no
Okay,
retail.
okay. No further question, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right, there's no other questions. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do now. So, I have to make need a motion to open to public?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Cardillicchio, second by Mr. O'Donnell, all in favor?
Aye.
Any noes? Anyone from the public who would like to ask questions, make comments on this application? Please come forward. Not seeing any? Motion to close to public?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Cardillicchio.
Second.
Second by Mr. O'Donnell, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Sonnenblick, you want to, well, before that, any other questions from professionals?
I have a question
Go
I
ahead,
would imagine would be directed at the gentleman making the application. Why is there, have you thought of putting a building up? I see it's not on the plan, any building of any kind.
No,
Why?
because it wouldn't be a permitted use, and in this case, we were coming for the variance for what he does have. I personally understand what you're saying, and if he wanted to, and he thought he would receive some comfort from this board, he could come back with another site plan and ask for something more, I guess, at some future time, if that's what he wanted to do. But he'd have to come back to you.
So the only other points, so we've got to talk about, where did we come down on the porta-johns? We want one or two, or
No,
we're going to use the gas station on the corner?
no, it's up to the employees whether they'll use a
we-
quick
we-
check or
we're okay with that?
they can use the house.
We're okay with that?
Yeah,
They-
as long as the owner is wanting.
The
to
owner
use it.
said they can use the house.
They can use the house. If they, in other words, if somebody has to go to the bathroom when they're there between 7 and 7:30, they could knock on, they could just use the
They can
house.
use the house.
Is the fire department good with the 16-foot gate? Did we hear from them?
Yes, we have the fire department report.
And what about the farmland buffer? Is the fence coming in the 50 feet, or?
Not the fence.
They agreed to it?
That's a decision I think the board's got to make today. Do they want to enforce the buffer and have them
We
move the
always
stuff
do,
over?
right?
Or do we just leave it as is?
What's that? I think it's appropriate also. It's a farm, and whether it's being farmed now, the next guy could. Yeah. I mean, whoever the owner could be next year.
Yeah.
So would we move the fence in for that, Jack, or?
No, you just don't use that area.
Just
Doesn't
designate that
say,
area not to be?
and then it would be vegetated. But he's got trees, some trees in there. Just can't use it.
Tom, this was moved.
Jack, I have a
This is
question.
right to the middle, yeah.
All right, and just scoot it in 50
Yeah,
feet.
just
right.
move it in.
You could use
So
it.
you don't have to move the fence?
Don't have to move the
You
fence.
could use it, you could use it for plant materials. In other words, if we had growth there, that would be permitted. We just can't, we can't have any impervious, I guess, what is the
That's
word we're
correct.
talking
That's correct.
So,
Jack, I want
Mark,
you to
you
answer
wanna-
this question. If
Answer
there's a
it.
farmland buffer there and we end up keeping it, if the property is sold and it isn't a farm anymore, the buffer evaporates?
yes.
Well, you'd have to put a condition. That's one of the things there's been talk about in the municipality for a long time. We put buffers in, but we don't put in the requirement that should the farm disappear, that the buffer can also disappear.
Well,
There's
I'd
a
like
lot
to-
of, there's a lot of properties in Howell that have buffers on them because there's farms, and the farms disappear, houses go in, those people can't get rid of the farmland buffer.
It's an
Unless
issue,
it's
an
putting
issue.
in,
Well, can we stipulate it?
well, you could put it in, sure, you could put it in that's required in the farmland buffer,
Well, I'd
And
like to
however,
stipulate
if the
it.
farmland, if the farm disappears, then the buffer can disappear, and then the property owner can use that property.
Right. I'd like to see it that way.
Because there's housing developments we have in Howell that have the buffers, and then they disappear. And the problem is, you can't come back and absorb it on one person, because it's on the file map. This doesn't happen to have a file map, but those are subdivisions that have it. And the only way you can eliminate that is everybody that has the farmland buffer has to reapply to change the file map.
But if they sell the property and they put houses in there, that's cut and dry. There's no need for buffer.
Well, in this case, it is, because it would only be by resolution.
Well,
But
right,
when
that
you
would
do
only
it
be
by-
for this case.
When you do it by subdivision,
No.
it's created on everybody's lot.
Right.
And that's the problem. Okay? Unless you put in that it's vacated upon the dissolution of the farm.
Actually, the ordinance, if I may, just having nothing to do with this application, but you have many residents of Howell that have houses, and then they find out that they can't extend their patio, or they can't do
Right.
this, and then they find out there's a farmland buffer.
Right,
And they
even
say, but
fences,
there's no
but this is
farmland, they
a-
say, like, I'm farming it, and everybody gets all
And then it
involved.
becomes a big fight.
Yes,
That's why
exactly.
I'd like to put it in this particular application to give him the benefit of the doubt, because there is a lot of growth planned on that road down there, and I believe that he should have the benefit of doubt, just
So-
for this particular case.
So what you're looking at is this, in this case, he would move the hardscape out of the 50 feet.
Yes.
We would put in the resolution that the 50-foot buffer will expire upon the elimination of the adjoining farm.
Exactly.
That way, that this property owner could then go to use it once that property is changed.
Exactly.
And we could put planting we could plant things in that 50-foot buffer.
Yes,
If the next applicant comes in and he's a farmer, and he turns it into a farm, continues it, the buffer stays.
that's correct, that's absolutely correct.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Yes.
Just two more questions.
Go ahead.
One is for the applicant itself. In terms of, I know you said you're not maintaining any equipment on the property, but would you be washing them and, in that terms of maintenance on site? Would you be doing that at the end of the day?
No, we generally do off-site washing of the equipment when we actually wash down the property, for instance, the driveway, the street where we're working. That would be the time when we would clean the equipment. And all of our trucks and trailers are being used on paved surfaces, so paved communities. So we're not tracking back dirt or anything like that, whereas some of our neighbors are
Okay.
in construction sites and whatnot.
All right, thank you. Mr. Chair, just 2 points I would like to make for the board. The first is, I guess in operations like this, maybe something we want to, if the board looks at it favorably, maybe timing is something we want to kind of stress on as to a definite time of operation. And the second issue that I would like to bring up is that we're giving them a variance to approve a house and an office with a storage yard. I know the applicant testified that there is no separate entrance for the office, but since we are talking of the use variance runs with the land, that is something I do want the board to think about, that you are approving an office on site which does not have a separate entrance, but the use is permitted. So in future, if it could be used as an office inside the house, so that's something I don't know if the board is thinking about or.
Well, we said you could put in the ordinance, if you grant the approval, that it could only be utilized by the owner or the operator of the business. So I think that would take away the issue
Okay,
of,
Yeah, we said that.
all right?
yeah.
And
It's just
then-
something, I wanted to bring it forward to the board. Thank you.
And then as far as the hours, it would be 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday.
Well, we would say, we say till dusk, if you will, because somebody may not get back at 6, they may get back at 6:30 or 7. That would be like one truck perhaps, based on his testimony. But if you wanted to say 7 a.m. till dark, except when there's daylight saving time for July, I don't know how to say
Yeah,
it,
yeah, that's the
in other
thing.
words, that extra hour, I don't know.
But can do a 12-hour day, or however however you
I'm
guys-
okay with dusk.
Okay. The dusk, okay.
Before we leave the subject, I'm sorry to bring it back up, but I'm going to be the one that has to enforce the dissolution of a farmland buffer in the future. When Mr. Tao wants to put a nice swing set up 20 feet from his property line, it's going to be my job to enforce that. So, to the north of the property right now is a kennel. They have Q Farm assessment, I believe, for wood harvesting in the rear of the property. Another use variance comes in, Q Farm lapses. Is the board willing to consider farm use no longer on that property? The fact that this is probably a 10-acre parcel, always can be farmed in the future. Where are we drawing that line? Because like I said, it's going to be my job to enforce this in the future, and it's got to be clear cut. It's one thing if 100 houses come up north and we have a subdivision here and small lots, clear as day. But there's a lot of gray in what we talked about, and I want to have something firm as to when that farmland buffer goes away.
Well, let's hear the gray.
The gray is, you have right now a business running from there. Q
Right.
Farm lapses in tomorrow because they don't meet their income standards. Do you consider that farm gone?
No.
When do we consider that farm gone?
When something changes and the
changes
use
the
is
use.
changed.
Well, we have a commercial use on it right now.
No, it doesn't.
But that's for the,
The
that's
use
not
is
for
what
his
counts.
use.
But it's
that's for
considered
the
a farm.
farmland buffer use.
Right, so when does that farm use go? So a use variance, say they leave, we have a new use variance come in to the north, different business.
Right.
They don't talk about keeping up harvesting business in the back. Q Farm maybe lapses. It's still a 10-acre plus parcel with the possibility of being farmed forever in the future, but right now we only have a business running from there. Is that farmland buffer gone?
No.
Under what standards?
I'm not really sure, but if it isn't something that comes in that doesn't require the farmland buffer, if it's houses or another business that is not farmland, then I would say the buffer's gone.
If anybody were to build on the adjacent property, which we're talking about, they'd have to come in for site plan approval. If it was a permitted use, they go to the planning board. If it's a farmland and they're coming for something other than farmland, they've got to come back to this board, and you would be then making a determination as to whether or not that's farmland again, because.
Well, I look at 5 years from now, say even the same tenants or new tenants doing the same business that maybe don't require site plan, don't require variance, and they stop farming. 5 years, 10 years go down.
The farmland stays whether you farm or not. That is, I mean, even though it's opposed to what my clients would ever want, once you put in a farmland buffer, or so to speak, farmland, it's farmland until it's no longer farmland. You could change the zoning ordinance too. I mean, the township has the ability. The governing body could always change the ordinance about farmland based upon any of the things you're talking about, and maybe they won't. So from your point of view, it's still farmland. As far as I'm concerned, I would be advising you, it's the use.
This
They
is the
can
first
do it.
time I think I'm coming
Let me ask
from
you,
a dissolution of a
Matt,
farmland
the
buffer.
question is, you're talking about the kennel
Yes,
changes.
where the farmland buffer is being offset from.
against. Until that changes use other than a farm, then that's when it's gonna stay in existence. If somebody, just because somebody else comes in and lives there, it's still kind of a farm.
And you can give, by the way, again, you tell me to shut up, I will. You as a zoning board, planning board, whatever the case may be, you can grant a particular site, they can grant a waiver from the farmland as it is being presented to the board. I believe that you can do that based upon where, for example, there was one on Route 33 where they used it for the material to make new Route 33, and yet it was in a place farmland, but nobody's farming, obviously. It was all reclamation, and so what was the point of having a farmland buffer? So I believe the board at that time said, well, we don't have to worry about it here in this particular, so it wasn't on the map showing the 50-foot next to new Route 33, so to speak. But that's, again, that's your township governing body has to make the ultimate decision. But Matt, you never have any problems with this. Nobody ever yells at you, so you don't have to worry
No,
about it.
never.
You see, Matt, the way I've seen it over the years is a lot of times there's a farmland buffer in force. Say the kennel sells to somebody that wants to store boats on the property. Well, it's no longer a farm and the buffer goes away. And that's the only time it goes away. If somebody comes in there and they start selling firewood again, the buffer stays because nothing's changed. If he wants to grow corn and whatever he wants to do, and it's still a farmland buffer, the buffer stays. It only gets terminated when the use gets terminated. This way, you know, when someone wants to use that property to sell, or give storage for boats or whatever they want to use, the buffer should rightly go away and not be imposed on the person like him. I mean, that's my contention for the 10 years that I've been sitting here.
So long as the new plan doesn't still have 5 acres possibly to be farmed.
Yes.
Because you could have a new use, they could be only touching 20% of the property
But
like
then
the
it would
subject
stay.
property.
Then it would stay.
Okay. I like black and white, so that's what I'm going for here,
I mean,
because
this is
Thumbs up.
an individual situation.
I understand that.
You know, it's not like you're changing policy for the town.
I understand
I
that.
mean, we've made adjustments where we've had 50-foot buffers, and we cut it down to a 25-foot buffer because the land was never used. So we changed the buffer. We did it once. But we do have the authority to do that. We're not trying to do that here.
I
And
understand.
I don't want to do
I
that.
understand this is just for this property. What I've experienced is what can go wrong will come up.
Yeah, I know. There's
So
Murphy's Law
I
that's
want this
always gonna
resolution to
come.
be black and white. I want to be able to point to this 5 years from now with looking at the uses nearby and being able to make an informed, correct decision. That's all I'm
The
doing.
way I spelled it out, would you be able to enforce that easily?
I think so, but I think reality will be something different.
Then we'll have to deal with it at the time.
Exactly.
Anything else? All right, Mr. Sonnenblick, you can close, and then it's up
Okay,
to
the
you
que-
whether you want us to vote
That's,
tonight.
that of course is the question. You know, as an attorney, it's always very difficult when you need 5 affirmative votes. And when I can't ask for I could ask, you don't have to give me a straw vote if I have the feeling that we made a decent, my client made a decent presentation, that we have the appropriate reasons for the board to grant a favorable, with all the conditions that were spoke about, but I always had the difficulty of saying yes and then finding out that I had 4 votes, and that means even if it was 4 and 2 abstentions, you don't get the use variance. So I don't really know what to do. Maybe I don't know if you guys are all in favor of this with all of the conditions that were raised. I would then ask my client what my client wants to do, because as Jerry Sonnenblick, as the attorney, I just have a difficulty of saying we'll go with 6 when we need 5, but I would let them make the decision. That's up to them, and that's all I can say at this point. Otherwise, I will turn to them, and wherever they are, maybe a week here.
It's up to him.
I don't mean you, Mike. Fucking Ross, man. I gotta tell you, I'm feeling like I shut down the
My
ship.
clients have spoken, and they want to say that they appreciate the testimony, and we'll go with you 6.
We'll go
And-
with the 6?
But don't tell Mr. Armada.
We'll tell him not to watch tonight's. All right. What's the board's decision?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make the motion. I don't know if I'm going to remember to get everything in. This is quite a complicated case. What's my notes here? Case number BA 17-10, motion to grant use variance and all waivers agreed upon and all conditions set forth, including the farmland buffer, the right-of-way with 16 feet easement, which right now is 80 feet .2. The easement would take that away if it happened. the 2 driveway asphalt aprons, the sign to be reduced, the 55 by 80 concrete pad, sidewalk waiver, give them that, they don't need a sidewalk, and a waiver for the 30-foot driveway for that. And I agree with the planner, Allison's findings. It's in a mixed use, but I believe that it's located in a very good area for the use, and that it should remain, the use should remain owner occupied, and the waiver would be granted for the residency, the office, and the commercial use. Even though it's in the ARE 6 zone, I've seen others approved in this zone, and my motion is to approve it.
We need a second.
Mr. Chairman, based on the testimony, I concur with Mr. O'Donnell. I think everything's been met with the stipulations. I'm very impressed with the owner's presentation and also both the engineer and the planner. I thought gave us all the information we needed and willingness to accept our stipulations. So I'm going to second the motion to approve this application.
Nice. So we have a motion to approve by Mr. O'Donnell and a second by Mr. Mertens. May we have a roll call, Eileen, please?
Yes, you may. Mr. Cordelicchio?
Yes.
Mr. Mertens?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mr. Posh?
Yes.
Mr. Turk?
Yes.
And Chairman San Clemente?
Yes, good luck.
Thank you
Motion
very much, we
carries.
appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank
I'd
you.
like to say one last thing.
Go ahead.
To Justin. Justin, I was very impressed with your education and all your experience to make this a very successful business, and you'll be a real asset to Howell Township and its residents. And I thank you very much for your presentation, the way you did.
Thank you.
Is there anything else that we have to do? If not, need a motion to close this meeting.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Cordelicchio,
Second.
second by Mr. Turk. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. We're gonna end at 10:22.
Thank you.
Never seen such leadership, never.